In the office, two people were sitting and having a conversation. One of them apologized to Yagami, saying that he was sorry for ruining his weekend. Yagami reassured him, saying that it was fine because it was his job to train the staff. Meanwhile, the main character was busy working on the computer, and the other person was sitting in the background. Our hero commented that not everyone learns from their mistakes, and the guy should have tried not to repeat them. Yagami agreed, mentioning that it would be strange if the newcomer did everything perfectly, referring to his ward. Yagami said that if his ward understood everything, then he should stop talking and start working. Upon hearing this, the young man agreed and turned away to focus on his work. Suddenly, our hero noticed that the guy's phone was ringing and drew attention to it. He turned to Takahashi, the ward, and asked if he thought it was his phone. Just as he suspected, Takahashi's phone started ringing. Upon realizing this, Takahashi apologized and explained that it was his girlfriend's birthday and their first anniversary since they started dating. Surprised, Yagami looked at his ward and said that the young man could leave to celebrate. The guy was taken aback and asked if the director was serious about it. Then Yagami mentioned that the young man would only be a hindrance in this situation, and Yagami could handle it faster. He advised the guy to reflect on his mistakes, but the young man wanted to argue with Yagami. Yagami reassured him and told him not to worry, adding that the guy shouldn't leave the girl alone on such an important day. On the other hand, Takahashi expressed his gratitude to our hero and said he would leave in the next moment. The guy hurriedly left, leaving our hero alone at the computer, contemplating what needed to be done right in front of him. After finishing his work, he left, realizing that another day had passed. He decided to grab a drink before heading home. Suddenly, Yagami friend spotted Takahashi standing right in front of him with a girl behind him. Our hero inquired about the situation and why Takahashi was there. Takahashi explained that he couldn't forget what had happened. His girlfriend then apologized for his behavior, admitting that she had asked him to leave his job for Yagami. As she handed over a package, she expressed uncertainty if it was enough to make amends, but our hero accepted it nonetheless. Our hero, Takahashi, declared that he wouldn't turn down the opportunity when he spotted a variety of food, including mashed potatoes. He expressed his gratitude to the people who brought it and mentioned that he would enjoy a feast at home later. Takahashi then suggested to Yagami that they could go to a restaurant together, but Yagami declined, stating that it was an important day for both of them and they should rest at home instead. The guys then proposed to accompany Yagami to the station, and Takahashi had no choice but to agree. As Takahashi was recounting Yagami's activities to his girlfriend, she remarked that Yagami seemed to always cause him trouble. Unbeknownst to them, Yagami was walking right behind them, and it was difficult for him to deny it with a smile. The girl mentioned that Takahashi often talked about Yagami, specifically about Yagami. Observing the two lovers, our hero thought highly of Takahashi and didn't want to ruin their anniversary with his girlfriend. He believed that Takahashi truly valued him and took care of him, and wondered why such a good person like Yagami didn't go home. The hero had a different perspective as he followed the two lovers. Suddenly, he noticed a child running beneath a truck. Without hesitation, our hero rushed under the truck to save the child. As the guys turned around, they were met with a horrifying sight. Everyone gathered around Yagami, crying and deeply concerned. Our hero lay on the road, wounded and bleeding. Takahashi and his girlfriend stood by him, assuring him that the ambulance would arrive soon. In that moment, our hero uttered Takahashi's name and thought about the ambulance, but also remembered his initial intention to save the child. He anxiously asked about the child's well-being, to which Takahashi's girlfriend replied that the child was scared, but unharmed. It was then that the young man realized he could barely hear the voices around him, and it dawned on him that he might be dying. Thoughts raced through his mind as he wished to be somewhere else and hoped that everyone would stop crying, as their sadness would only make him sadder. He pondered on his desire to live longer, considering his age of 29 and the average life expectancy in Japan being 80 years. He yearned to be the one who would live until 80. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a voice chimed in, announcing that there was a search to be conducted elsewhere. With approximately 431 million narrowed search results, The voice mentioned that the person who would live to be 80 years old had only 6,600 search results. In that moment, our protagonist pondered the thought of how unfortunate it would be to die and lose all the skills they had acquired on the job. Yagami wondered if everything was all right with Takahashi, fearing that he might make the same mistake. They felt sorry that Yagami couldn't pass on his skills to Takahashi. Just then, the voice reappeared, declaring that the data transmission search was successful and the desired search result had been found. As the voice spoke about all this data, the young man realized that it had been talking for quite some time, just like a Google assistant. In the next moment, he stretched out his hand and found himself in a lake. Opening his eyes, he saw the sky and trees before him, realizing that he hadn't actually died. Examining his hand, he noticed that it was no longer human-like, and his skin had changed. As he stood up, he encountered peculiar creatures and asked them who they were. Observing the creatures, the young man thought they resembled goblins. Without hesitation, the creatures suggested that they might be friends, as the young man had fallen from the sky. Pointing upwards and touching himself, he tried to comprehend his new body and existence. Our protagonist soon realized that he had undergone a drastic transformation. He meticulously documented the sequence of events. First, he was struck by a truck. Then he met his demise, and finally, he found himself reborn as a goblin. He pondered whether this was a reincarnation in another realm, and in that moment, he couldn't help but wonder if fate was mocking him. As he settled into the goblin community, our hero gradually adapted to their way of life and effortlessly mingled with his fellow goblins. He discovered that goblins, much like rabbits, possessed an astonishing fertility rate. Females could conceive offspring from multiple partners simultaneously, but their lifespan was tragically short, lasting only 7 days. They reproduced rapidly and perished just as swiftly. Additionally, goblins were born with innate skills, and upon death, these skills could be passed on to a nearby goblin. However, despite accumulating numerous skills, our hero couldn't transfer them to other goblins unless they were born with the same abilities. Remarkably, our hero possessed a skill that granted him an extended lifespan of 80 years, a result of a wish he had made upon his demise. The young man fought using his skill. He had already defeated 34 generations of goblins, whose normal lifespan was much shorter than his. As a result, he had inherited over 200 skills. He could freely utilize these skills, but once those 200-plus skills disappeared, only the 80-year-old creature would be passed on to the next goblin. It seemed like a waste of time, but there was nothing he could do about it. Accepting this fact, he headed through the forest. Jumping through it, he noticed how dark the forest was. Looking around, he realized that the goblin village was surrounded by this force. The villagers lived in solitude, so as he walked through the forest, he enjoyed eating apples. He thought about how delicious they were. His sense of taste was almost indistinguishable from that of a human, and goblins, being omnivorous, could eat almost anything. Unlike humans, goblins didn't need to sleep. With their short lifespan, it would be foolish to waste time on sleeping. Luckily, this didn't concern him as he had grown accustomed to his body. However, there was one thing that bothered him greatly: his strong libido and attraction towards goblins. It was 3 times stronger than that of a person, and goblins, with their cute appearance resembling soft toys, were irresistible to him. However, out of all the goblins, the young man was incredibly popular. Being a man, he didn't come across many like himself while walking through the forest. Our hero stumbled upon a wounded person and kindly asked him to be quiet so he could heal him. In that moment, the goblin used his inherited skill of healing, one of the 200 skills he possessed. Our hero sat next to the wounded stranger and curiously asked the goblin what he was doing. Was he really not afraid of the Demon King? The young man explained that the wounded person was just injured, whether it was the Demon King or someone else. But then he heard about the King of Demons and was taken aback. Our hero couldn't help but think that the wounded man resembled the Demon King. Does the Demon King truly exist? It was quite thrilling. In the next moment, he realized that in a world where goblins exist, a Demon King is not impossible. Looking at the goblin, The king called him a crazy goblin. Our hero asked him to be quiet, as he couldn't heal his wounds while he talked. Without paying much attention to the Demon King's words, our hero continued to heal the wounded person. The Demon King claimed it was useless, as no one, including himself, could heal those wounds. As the goblin examined the wound of his new acquaintance, he couldn't help but realize that despite his best efforts, there was no way to assist the Demon King. The goblin had a wide range of skills, which the Demon King inquired about. The goblin explained that he now possessed 277 skills, even though he was born with the abilities of an 80-year-old creature. Upon hearing this, the Demon King burst into laughter, dismissing it as a mere mutation. However, his laughter soon turned into coughing, causing the goblin to worry and ask if he was all right. The Demon King pondered that if the goblin possessed such skills, his physical vessel should have been larger than usual. This revelation surprised the hero who had been listening. The Demon King then suggested that the hero could potentially inherit skills from other creatures, leaving the goblin astonished. Curious about acquiring new skills, the hero was greatly surprised. Reflecting on his own experiences, the goblin realized that he had led the goblins 277 times, absorbing their skills along the way. This realization left him with conflicting emotions. The Goblin King spends his final moments on a goblin, but he knew that whether it was a goblin or a Demon King, the essence was the same. Everyone wants to leave some kind of mark behind them. Our hero agreed, while gazing at the Goblin King. In the next moment, the Goblin King bestowed upon the goblin the law of the jungle. Witnessing this gift, our hero accepted it, and then inquired about the nature of this law. The Goblin King explained that monsters have a tendency to obey those who are stronger than them. This skill makes the goblin absolutely powerful. Suddenly, the Goblin King's hand dropped, leading me to believe that he had perished. Our hero asked what the Goblin King meant. The Goblin King then clarified that as soon as the young man defeats someone, they will completely obey him. No matter what happens, the law of the jungle will never betray its master. The Goblin King explained that with this, he would become the Goblin King, referring to the nameless goblin as he dies. The rest is up to him. The goblin was extremely surprised as he looked at the Goblin King. In the next moment, the Goblin King vanished. On this day, the world rejoiced because the death of the Goblin King, who had waged a 100-year war, was confirmed. However, what people didn't suspect was that the threat from the Goblin King hadn't disappeared. Yagami died at the age of 29 in his previous world, where he was a new employee in a small company. The young man gave up his life to protect a little child from a speeding truck. Unfortunately, he died, but instead of the afterlife, he found himself in a whole new world as a goblin. As he strolled through the forest, our hero was busy plucking apples. On his way back, he stumbled upon a group of goblins. Curious, he asked them about the commotion and what had happened. They began discussing the goblin who had accidentally killed a man while sitting on his knees. Upon hearing this, our hero was taken aback. The goblins were distressed, clutching their heads and expressing how terrible it was that one of their own had taken a life. Pondering over the situation, our hero realized that there must be a taboo among goblins against killing humans. Just then, the goblin in question spoke up, wondering what else he could have done. He explained that he was in the forest when a man suddenly attacked him out of nowhere. This made our hero question whether it was truly impossible for a goblin to defend themselves by killing a human. As they tried to figure out what to do next, someone sounded the alarm, warning them that people were approaching and preparing to attack. The goblins panicked, as they were weak and had no other abilities except for their quick reproduction. So, everyone freaked out and was too scared to even think about what they should do. Our hero realized that they were all in a state of panic. He turned to the goblins and asked how many people were coming and from which direction. One of the goblins replied that there were 50 people right in front of them. Hearing this, everyone became even more worried. Our hero then tried to calm everyone down and discussed his plan. He decided to head towards the direction where the people were supposed to come from. The goblins, confused, couldn't understand what our hero intended to do or how he could possibly stand against the people. Ignoring their doubts, our hero boldly approached the people on their horses who were approaching the goblins. The goblins, in turn, insulted our hero and claimed that it was their turn to take lives. However, before the goblin could say anything else, the knight leading the group attacked our hero. But our hero had a special skill called the Iron Body, which made his body as hard as iron. The knights were powerless against him, and their swords broke upon contact with his skill. Then, the young man unleashed stone rain, summoning a barrage of stones to rain down on the enemy. The stones pummeled their opponents from above, leaving them no chance to retaliate. The commander reassured her knights not to fear, as the young man was merely a goblin with a few special skills. Observing his adversaries, our hero realized that this was his first taste of using skills in combat. With this powerful attack, he could defeat anyone. In the blink of an eye, a mountain of defeated knights lay before him. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, the young man believed he had taken care of everyone. The commander, witnessing the scene, found it impossible to comprehend that a mere goblin could achieve such a feat. Curious, our hero turned to the girl and asked if she was the leader, as he simply wanted to talk. The commander was taken aback by the goblin's unexpected request. Without hesitation, she removed her helmet and agreed to converse with our hero. As the young man laid eyes on the girl, he was captivated by her beauty. He admitted that they had wronged her people and never expected to be forgiven so easily. However, he questioned how she could attack their village with such ease. The goblin explained that they had posed a threat by attacking one of their own, and thus they had to eliminate the danger. Then the goblin mentioned that this wouldn't happen. If a monster has the ability to kill people, it's only natural to want to eliminate it. Turning to the girl, our hero informed her that he knew the village had a judicial system. The girl was taken aback upon hearing what the goblin had said. The goblin then revealed that he was the judge of the goblins, which surprised her even more. The goblin hero explained that the punishment for killing a person was 7 days in prison and asked for her opinion. The knight, looking at him, stated that the goblin was mocking them by spitting in their face. Fearing this, the commander asked if a life sentence would be more reasonable. Our hero pondered about it and realized that the life expectancy of a goblin is only 7 days, so it truly was a life imprisonment for him. He explained this to everyone and further added that there would be a joint check in 6 days to ensure the sentence was carried out. Upon hearing this, the knights turned to the commander and argued that there was no reason to listen to this monster. They believed it was necessary to kill and destroy the village. Everyone unanimously agreed with one of the knights who told the commander that this was nonsense. Our hero thought that the company was very noisy. In the next moment, the law of the jungle came into play, and our hero used it to gain absolute obedience from those he defeated. Suddenly, all the knights were under our hero's influence. After that, the knights swore allegiance to the goblin, stating that they lived to serve their master. Upon hearing this, the commander was confused and asked what the knights were doing. Addressing everyone, our hero realized how it worked by observing the goblin's reaction. The commander commented that the guy was an interesting goblin and acknowledged their laws, but mentioned that their laws only applied outside the forest. The young man responded that it was fair, referring to the little goblin. Curious about his name, the commander asked if he had one. Realizing that he was being asked about his name, our hero thought that his old Japanese name would probably sound strange. The goblin never called him anything special, so he simply said that his name was Akira. Upon hearing this name, the commander remarked that it was a strange name and introduced herself as Karen, a security inspector who was at his service. The goblin repeated Karen's name upon hearing it, and then the commander announced their departure, emphasizing the need to assist the wounded. In the blink of an eye, our hero caught sight of the girl leading her knights back to their village. Returning to his own village, our hero was warmly welcomed by all the goblins. They praised him for saving the village and hailed him as a hero. Their joy was palpable as they declared that he was truly exceptional, especially for his skill in negotiating with others. The goblins even suggested that he should become their village leader, the headman, and bestowed their blessings upon him. In the blink of an eye, he found himself seated on the throne, overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events. In this otherworldly village, he had become their leader, much to his surprise. The commander expressed her disbelief, as she had thought the goblin had perished in prison. However, our hero assured her that everything was now clear to him. Suddenly the girl inquired about his peculiar attire and his always perfectly styled hair. Our hero, standing before her, felt a wave of embarrassment as he explained that he had been appointed as the village headman after the incident. He now wore a fancy hat, his hair neatly combed over his bald head, and was dressed in monk's robes. Observing our hero, the commander remarked that the new look didn't suit him at all. Our hero removed his hat and expressed his awkwardness. The commander discussed the goblin, mentioning that his promotion as headman worked in their favor. After that, he reverted back to his previous form. The goblin disagreed, stating that it wasn't the case. The commander reported that the killer was indeed brought to justice, but she didn't know the details. The goblin asked how this could be possible, and suggested asking their superiors since they were not satisfied with the outcome. Upon hearing this, the commander inquired how the goblin found out about it. Our hero remarked that he wasn't surprised for some reason, as he had been in a similar situation not long ago. Reflecting on his past life, he realized that even if he made optimal decisions, the situation could worsen due to the stubbornness of pride and the incompetence of superiors. The young man thought that his relationship with workers and superiors seemed to be the same in any world. Sighing, our hero reminisced about his past life, while Karen looked at him in surprise. The goblin then turned to Karen and acknowledged that it must have been difficult for her. In response, the girl rejected the guy's pity, stating that she didn't need it. She then turned to the goblin and admitted that there was a situation she felt embarrassed to talk about. However, she had a desire to request the goblin's company and persuade her superiors. She believed that if the authorities met the goblin, they would understand everything. Our hero pondered over the fact that sooner or later he would have to meet with them. It seemed that the authorities were confident that the goblin crisis in the village had been completely eradicated. Despite becoming the head man, he couldn't simply abandon everyone. After contemplating a bit more, our hero decided to accompany the commander to the city. All the people watched the goblin attentively at that moment. The commander rode her horse, which appeared even more peculiar. Turning to Karen, he expressed his embarrassment, but the girl advised her to endure a little. This was to prevent the villagers from attacking the goblin. People in the city might be frightened at the mere mention of the word monster. Observing Karen, our hero realized that this situation could be interpreted as either welcoming a guest or capturing a prisoner. Perhaps it was the best solution to maintain order. In the next moment, as they traveled through the city, our hero noticed that the people didn't appear scared. It must have been because he was a goblin. The commander explained that keeping a goblin as a pet was once considered trendy. Unlike their relatives, goblins were not only more modest and gentler, but also quite cute. Our hero thought they were adorable, even from his perspective as someone transported from another world. He saw them as talismans. Then, the commander reported that this trend faded quickly, likely due to the goblin's notorious 7-day lifespan. Our hero wasn't surprised by this. While riding a horse and talking to a girl, he roamed around the city. Everyone found him very nice, and they were curious about the goblin's presence. They mentioned that it had been a while since they last saw a goblin. Finally reaching the main building, our hero thought the attention would fade. However, upon entering the building, he realized it was a massive mansion. The young man mentioned that he needed to use the toilet, and a maid appeared offering to show him the way. She thought the goblin was incredibly cute. After guiding our hero to the toilet, the young man sat in a fancy room, wondering if peace could be found somewhere in this mansion. He looked around and realized it was just a toilet. In the blink of an eye, he glanced out the window and spotted a massive tree with a man trimming its branches. The man was using a ladder to climb up into the garden. Curious, the goblin asked if someone took care of this garden every day. Startled by the presence of the goblin, the old man expressed his surprise, as he hadn't seen anyone like him in a long time. He questioned whether the goblin had been captured. Our hero, looking at the old man, assured him that he had come here willingly. This revelation left the old man astounded, prompting him to inquire about the goblin's purpose. Was he planning to attack the city? The goblin quickly dismissed this notion, explaining that he had actually come to negotiate. The old man was taken aback by this unexpected turn of events. The goblin then revealed that one of his relatives had recently killed a man, assuming the old man had heard about it. After pondering for a moment, the old man vaguely recalled hearing something about it. The goblin confessed that he had come to take responsibility for the incident. Upon hearing this, the old man asked if the goblin was the killer. Our hero clarified that he was not, but he had been appointed as the representative and would have to apologize on behalf of his relative. Upon hearing this, the elderly man grasped the goblin's true purpose, to save his beloved village from destruction. However, the god clarified that this was not the case. Intrigued, the old man wanted to know the reason behind it all. Our hero began to explain that both humans and goblins are prone to making mistakes, but it's all right as long as we learn from them and don't repeat them. He urged the old man not to miss the opportunity to learn from this mistake and came forward to apologize. As he looked at the goblin, the old man chuckled and jokingly asked if the goblin had come from the toilet. The goblin, hearing this, shouted in agreement, criticizing the impracticality and ridiculousness of the toilet. He claimed that it was difficult to have philosophical thoughts in such a place. The old man burst into laughter, wholeheartedly agreeing with the goblin's sentiments and even calling the person who designed it a complete fool. The goblin was taken aback by the old man's words and expressed surprise. Just then, someone turned to the count, and our hero realized it was the commander who had rushed into the garden. She announced that the count was present and brought along the goblin in question. It was at that moment our hero realized that the two of them were already able to communicate. The goblin was taken aback by the girl's words. He pointed towards the old man standing in front of him, but couldn't comprehend if this man was the earl or just a gardener. The commander, upon hearing this, was also surprised. She scolded the goblin for his words and revealed that the old man was actually the owner of the mansion, His Majesty the Emperor, the Count of Orleans. Our hero was astonished by this revelation and accused the old man of deceiving him. In response, the old man remarked that it was impolite to make such assumptions and that he was simply pursuing his hobby. Despite the confusion, our hero realized that something interesting was happening and decided to put an end to the matter. He instructed the goblin to follow him and told the commander, Karen, that she was free to go, expressing his gratitude for her service. As our hero watched the old man leave, he couldn't help but think that the old man seemed to have a commanding presence. He was unsure of what to make of it. Meanwhile, everyone who saw the goblin found him adorable, as some had never encountered one before. Our hero was overwhelmed with affection. Then the count, who was sitting across from him, introduced himself as Simon and assured him that their conversation would remain confidential. He mentioned that he liked our hero because he was very kind, stating that a man should strive to be like that. Otherwise, what's the point of being born if our hero was so taken aback by what he heard? Standing next to the count were girls who advised him to take care of himself at his age, as his body couldn't handle it anymore. Our hero couldn't comprehend why the old man spoke to him in such a manner, and he wondered if the girls were being serious too. The old man explained that he had chosen to live life to the fullest, and that's what the young man should do as well, surpassing other men. Our hero, perplexed, asked the old man what he meant by that, and the old man stood up from his seat without saying a word. He mentioned that our hero would need to meet many people to truly understand women, at least 1,000 of them. With little experience, our hero was just a young man who didn't understand anything about women, and he continued to laugh while looking at him. Our hero thought it was too much, questioning if he could really behave like that. In the next moment, our hero asked the old man how he understood men, and the old man replied that he would achieve that through gambling. Hearing about gambling, our hero was incredibly surprised. Then the elderly man mentioned that card games such as blackjack, poker, or even mahjong would be more suitable for competition. He explained to our hero that although mahjong doesn't involve cards, it is still a game where a person's true nature is revealed when they gamble. Upon hearing this, our hero questioned whether it was truly necessary to do this 1,000 times. The old man reassured him that it wasn't necessary, as men are much easier to understand than women. One instance is enough to reveal their true character. It was indeed true that gambling can drastically change a person. However, the old man acknowledged that this was merely his opinion. He then asked our hero what he would do to understand a man. The little goblin pondered for a moment and replied that he would observe their mistakes and discuss whether they would repeat them. He believed that everyone makes mistakes, but it's important not to repeat them over and over again. The goblin added that some men learn from their mistakes, while others do not. This was his way of understanding them. Upon hearing this, the old man found it to be an interesting perspective. He realized that there are many different ways to comprehend others. In that moment, he acknowledged that he was speaking to our hero. Observing the old man, the goblin thought that this place was probably prestigious. He had been to another club before, but all the attention was focused on another customer. But now, it was his turn. The old man declared that this conversation had become dull, and it was time to appreciate the beautiful flowers. He mentioned that he would be upstairs, allowing our hero to enjoy himself as he neared the end of his life. However, the goblin interjected, stating that everything was fine as he sat surrounded by lovely girls. Our hero proudly announced that he possessed the wisdom of an 80-year-old being, enabling him to live for 80 years. Upon hearing this, the old man was taken aback and stood up. Initially, our hero thought the old man was angry with him and had said something wrong. As the old man approached, he grabbed our hero's hands and affectionately called him a dear friend, much to the young man's surprise. Following that, the old man revealed that someone like our hero could encounter 3,000 or even 30,000 women in his lifetime. That's how it should be, our hero thought, turning to his friend and expressing his willingness to share his fantasies. However, our hero made it clear that he had no interest in hearing about the old man's fantasies. Afterward, both the old man and the goblin left the building, content with the outcome. Our hero found it amusing and anticipated more adventures to come. The goblin commended the old man for his handling of this night, and the old man praised our hero, acknowledging his excellent performance. The young guy believed he was still in shock, because, let's face it, it's not hard for those mischievous goblins to stay active all night. Suddenly, they heard a noise and saw the horse and coachman galloping straight towards them. The villagers shouted for the coachman to stop, as the carriage was heading straight for a child. Our hero wanted to save the kid, and, in that moment, he remembered a past life where he had saved someone before. Realizing he had skills, he quickly conjured up a stone wall to protect the child. The cart crashed into the wall, but our hero stood tall, proud of his quick thinking. The goblin approached the child, asking if they were okay, while sitting on the floor and playing with a toy. Our hero looked at the child, who asked how he did it. Our hero revealed that he was a goblin, which explained his magical abilities. At that moment, the child's parents rushed over, thanking the goblin. Our hero humbly brushed it off, saying it was nothing. But everyone insisted that he was a true miracle worker, using such incredible magic. Soon, everyone gathered around our hero, wanting to touch him and express their gratitude. At that moment, the Count observed the young man who was standing near a dark alley. He asked if the person he was looking for was there. The voice replied that he was present. The Count then instructed the voice to keep an eye on the goblin from now on. The voice obeyed, and the Count, while gazing at the goblin, pondered that this creature with a long lifespan could pose a greater threat than the demon lord. The boy attempted to pull our hero's ear, but the goblin advised him to behave cautiously. The child exclaimed how cool goblins were, to which our hero assured him that everything was fine, and he was glad the young man wasn't harmed. Just as the parents were expressing their gratitude, someone suddenly exclaimed that the goblin was dreadful. It turned out to be Sullivan Jr., the man who pointed at the carriage and claimed to have stopped the goblin. He then asked our hero about the goblin's owner and looked around for them. In that moment, the Count approached and revealed that the goblin's owner was the former prime minister, who now lived as a recluse somewhere in the hometown. As the old man approached, he noticed the Count and questioned why the goblin was roaming the city without a collar. The Count apologized for the situation. Our hero observed the skirmish and found it peculiar that the Count intended to leave without revealing his identity. The Count remained silent when the man apologized, but the goblin sensed trouble if the Count continued in the same manner. Suddenly, another man appeared and caught the goblin's attention with his suspicious behavior. The goblin initially considered using perception, but then opted for his clairvoyance skill, realizing that some goblin skills were quite similar. He used his skill to examine the carriage, and at that moment, the man who had shouted at the Count, and our hero, questioned if anyone believed they could leave without consequences. Approaching the carriage, the goblin announced that it was empty. Upon hearing this, the man asked for the goblin's explanation. The Count then revealed that if it was true, it meant that the man had misused the crew and the coat of arms for personal gain, causing a scandal. The man claimed to have no knowledge of this. The goblin, upon hearing that the man denied the Count's accusation, asked him if it was true. In the next moment, the man found himself tied up and yelling at everyone to let him go. He claimed that he was being falsely accused of dangerous driving and causing damage, and that he needed to calm down. The Count, who was nearby, thought the man was being very noisy. The man cursed at the Count, threatening to destroy him. Everyone quickly told the man to watch his words, as he was dealing with someone not to be taken lightly. Suddenly, the man realized he had said too much. The Count thanked everyone for their assistance, and our hero, the goblin, started talking about random things. Turning to the goblin, the Count mentioned that a bad goblin wouldn't risk their life to save someone else's child. He assured our hero that nobody would harm his friend's village. Upon hearing this, the goblin asked if the conflict between humans and goblins had been resolved. The Count explained that our hero's village would be treated as an autonomous human village. The goblin expressed gratitude towards Simon, referring to our hero, and mentioned that he had no choice but to send his man there. He stated that Karen would act as a hunter and observer. The goblin assured everyone that this wouldn't be a problem. Our hero believed that Karen would be a good choice because he could easily communicate with her. As soon as he returned to the village, he addressed all the villagers and assured them that everything was fine. He also agreed with their decision not to harm anyone or destroy the village. The villagers praised him for being an exceptional chief. Suddenly, the female goblins started asking the hero to be their partner and have children with them. However, our hero simply laughed it off and ignored their requests. He then announced that there would be some changes and that he would establish laws. Meanwhile, Karen was secretly listening to the hero's words from behind a tree. A goblin informed her that the first law was not to harm people, which was the most important rule. All the goblins obediently followed our hero's orders. Karen, standing behind the tree, remembered what the Earl had instructed her to do. He had asked her to keep an eye on the goblin and report any suspicious activities immediately. Upon hearing this, Karen wondered how she was constantly being watched and how the goblin could possibly do anything suspicious. Right now, our hero was having a conversation with his fellow soldiers. He mentioned that if they understood the laws, he wanted to know if there were any children with combat skills present. Some of them raised their hands and confirmed that they were the ones. Karen was curious about what the goblin was going to do, and when our hero noticed her, he was surprised to see her there. The goblins became very nervous upon seeing Karen, claiming that she was a man and that they were scared. However, our hero assured them that everything was fine because this woman was his friend. The young man explained the situation to Karen, who stood behind our hero and asked if she could clarify something. She was appointed as an observer and promised not to do anything to the goblins as long as they didn't harm anyone. Upon hearing this, the goblins found it quite intimidating. Our hero then asked Karen how she planned to work with them. In the next moment, Karen looked at the sad eyes of the goblins, cleared her throat, and approached them. She gently stroked their heads, apologized, and introduced herself as Karen. She explained that she would simply accompany and protect their leaders, and that she was on their side. The goblins found this very friendly and became embarrassed. They also liked that she smelled good. Our hero was just talking about how he hadn't revealed everything yet. He was thinking that if they had organized properly, they should have built a garrison. This way, they would be less likely to run into people. Then Karen chimed in and said that even if they were organized, the life of a goblin only lasts 7 days. The girl asked our hero if this was true. The young man replied, saying that it did seem like they would stop working faster. Then our hero mentioned that he had also thought about it and explained that from now on, the young man would be called Hanzo, pointing to the goblin. Hearing this, Hanzo asked again, pointing to himself. At that moment, Karen was very surprised. Our hero then thought that this would be more of a characteristic rather than a name, The girl couldn't believe her ears at this point. The goblin started talking about how he came up with this name after hearing about Sullivan Jr., the former prime minister. Upon hearing this, the goblin declared that he would now call himself Hanzo. Our hero then explained that when he died, the person who would inherit his skills would receive the name, making it even more prestigious. And after him, 3 children with offensive skills would join the Hanzo team. Our hero asked if everyone understood this. The goblins who were listening nodded and said that they understood everything. Karen, gazing at our hero, mentioned that it seemed like they were loved by everyone because they agreed so quickly. Hearing this, the young man became confused and asked if there was anyone here who had the skill of determining the value of things and counting money. Some people raised their hands, indicating that they could do it. Our hero counted only 3 individuals and thought that it was quite rare to possess such a gift. Referring to one of the goblins named Akira, he stated that from now on, the girl would be known as Kinokuniya. Upon hearing this, the girl felt inspired and proudly declared that she was indeed Kinokuniya. Karen, observing the entire situation, asked what the goblin would do with people. Our hero responded by saying that if they wanted to trade, they would deal with this goblin. If the goblin committed a crime, his fate would be decided by the judge. Even if the previous goblin disappeared, the next goblin would also possess a skill and take over the position. This system worked well for addressing problems given their short lifespan. Our hero then asked if the girl had any questions. Karen, observing the situation, stood behind a tree and thought that it was not surprising that Count Simon was afraid of this monster. She was referring to our hero, thinking that he was not an ordinary goblin. One of the goblins ran up to the headman and told him to take a look at it. In just a few weeks, several generations of pancakes, the goblins appeared before our hero, introducing a connected person. Our hero then turned to Hanzo, a young man, and asked what was in front of him. It turned out to be the 3rd handsome man, as 2 weeks had passed since the naming system Generations was launched. Everything seemed to be working as intended, our hero thought. Pointing at the man, Hanzo explained that he had invaded their forest and tried to attack him. However, the goblin managed to knock him out. Karen even asked if Hanzo had dealt with him alone, to which Hanzo confirmed that he did, as he was ordered to defend the village by the headmen. Looking at the tied-up man, the goblin realized that this was not an isolated incident. In fact, it seemed to be a recurring problem of self-defense. Our hero pondered this as he observed the man. The young man then instructed the goblin to take him to Karen, but the goblin hesitated for a moment. Curious, our hero asked what was wrong, and the goblin awkwardly replied that everything was fine. Our hero insisted on knowing what happened, hoping to offer some assistance. The embarrassed goblin finally confessed that he had promised to make a baby today and couldn't wait for his shift to end. Akira understood that this was a matter of life and death. Flack pondered about the goblin's habit of having children towards the end of its life. The goblin looked at our hero with surprise, and the young man assured him that he would handle the rest on his own. This caught the goblin off guard, but our hero insisted that there was no need to delay, and urged the goblin to go and do it. The goblin, fearing the headmen's approval, happily thanked them and ran off. As our hero looked at the person in front of him, he thought it would be necessary to transfer this guy to Karen. However, Karen appeared and said it wasn't necessary. The goblin, curious, asked why she was there. Karen explained that she overheard their conversation with Hanzo and knew people like Akira. Our hero asked if he was also one of those people, and Karen explained that he was someone who always took everything upon himself, leaving nothing for himself in the end. The goblin chuckled, and the girl mentioned that it was an interesting topic. She mentioned how goblins pass down one name through generations, referring to the hero. She remarked that even though a lot of time had passed, the effect was still astonishing. Then she spoke and asked what the goblin was talking about. The young man then offered to take a look at the person in front of him. The goblin explained that he had been sleeping and had several cuts and bruises on him. The goblin then showcased his skills by using fire and stone rain, impressing Karen. She thought that the goblin possessed the same skills. However, upon closer inspection, Karen couldn't understand what it meant. Karen then mentioned that goblins transfer their skills when they die, wondering if it was true. It wasn't surprising that they had multiple skills, as reported until now. The skills were transferred to the next goblin in line. After hearing this, Karen asked our hero to explain again. He clarified that a child with the ability of arithmetic could gain the ability of strength simply by being present at a funeral. Karen argued that it was pointless, as acquiring a skill usually involved utilizing energy from an existing ability or choosing something compatible with it. This is where the goblins had a significant advantage. Karen finally understood why goblins with offensive abilities gathered near Hanzo, who conducted skill research in that circle. Our hero explained that until now, it had been rare to find 3 skills of the same type in one goblin. This made him ponder. It's a shame that after getting hit by a truck, he couldn't pass on his skills to someone else. He thought about transferring his skills to Takahashi, but the girl next to him was just as simple-minded. Goblins don't think about it. They just pass on their skills. Akira wanted to change this by implementing a succession system. He also mentioned that even a goblin with a short lifespan could achieve a lot. Karen mentioned that they would have to recognize the goblin as a threat, but our hero assured them that everything was fine because he was there. As long as he was present, the goblins wouldn't be hostile towards people. He asked the girl not to worry and promised to handle any potential conflicts. Karen then mentioned that our hero would have to live a long life, to which he replied that he had at least 80 years left since he was already 80 years old. While they were talking, someone was running through the forest, pondering their whereabouts and the disappearance of the creature in the cloak. The cloaked figure used a skill called Law of the Jungle to search for something. They believed they were getting closer and closer to the Demon King, even if they were already deceased. This time, they wouldn't be stopped, and they wouldn't lose their place next to the Demon King. Meanwhile, our hero was faced with a new problem. He decided to take a break from his work and wrote a letter, thinking that he had finally finished. As he got up from his chair, he couldn't help but notice how uncomfortable it was to sit all day. The goblins, unfortunately, didn't know how to make good furniture. This made him realize the need to form a group with fine craftsmanship skills. Just as he was pondering this, Karen entered his house and asked what the goblin was up to. Our hero explained that he was creating a simple legislation. Upon hearing this, the goblin informed Karen that it would be legislation that could be shown to the people. Akira chimed in, saying that if it was only about goblins, they wouldn't need all this. However, in order to strengthen their autonomy, they needed to show the people that they had laws. Karen then expressed her admiration for the young man's desire to introduce legal self-defense. Our hero was surprised by this and asked Karen about it. She then questioned whether goblins had such a concept. Our hero recalled mentioning it before and realized it must have been when one of the goblins killed a man. He assured Karen that there was a concept of legal self-defense, although it might be slightly different. To illustrate his point, the goblin drew 2 intersecting circles on a piece of paper. Our hero then painted over the area where the circles intersected. Karen agreed with our hero, carefully observing him as he gazed at the goblin. She believed that one previous incident had already taught him a lot, and his idea of giving names to goblins was equally brilliant. The girl also thought that this particular goblin was not like any ordinary goblin. She felt the need to report it, as its appearance posed a serious threat. As Karen continued to look at the goblin, she wondered if it understood this as well. Suddenly, our hero heard screams and was unaware that Karen had also turned around. They both quickly left their house. In that moment, goblins were snatching children and fleeing. Witnessing this, our hero asked what was happening. All the village headmen were gathered around a creature, with the goblins surrounding it. The creature believed that it possessed the skill of a shadow clone, and it found this goblin particularly intriguing for a goblin. Without hesitation, it attacked one of the goblins and expressed that it would no longer hold back, demanding answers to its questions. Just then, our hero emerged and requested the creature to wait. He stood face to face with it, inquiring about its identity and motives. The creature, with its horns, stared at our hero and asked who he was. Our hero, turning to the girl with horns, stated that he was the village headman. He looked at her, awaiting her response. The girl mentioned that she would inquire about the presence of the Demon Lord and where to find him. Hearing about the Demon Lord, Karen became extremely excited and grabbed her weapon. Observing the girl, our hero wondered if she was a servant of the demon lord or from another race. At that moment, Karen mentioned that the demon lord was dead and that it was common knowledge. However, the girl's face changed and she vehemently denied it, screaming that it was a lie. According to her, the demon lord couldn't possibly be dead. Kuro was certain of this and confidently stated that the demon lord was still alive. She used a search ability to prove her point. In that moment, our hero started to glow and was surprised when he saw the girl. To his astonishment, the girl was actually a goblin. She questioned why he possessed the skills of the demon lord. Witnessing this, our hero also began to glow. Karen then asked Akira if it was true. Kuro, understanding everything now, realized that the young man before her was the one who had killed the demon lord and stolen his power. Without hesitation, Kuro rushed towards our hero, ready to attack. As our hero flew away from the scene, he pleaded with the girl to wait and listen to what he had to say. However, Kuro refused to listen and declared that she would kill him. Then our protagonist realized that the girl had no interest in listening to him. He understood that he would have to silence her. In the next moment, he utilized his chain skill to bind her. However, to his surprise, the girl managed to break free from the chains. Our hero then realized that there was an incredible power within her small body. Suddenly, Kuro attacked our hero once again. The young man thought that she had completely lost her mind. In response, our hero used the chains against her, knowing that she couldn't escape. The girl pleaded to be released, but our hero turned to Kuro and expressed that he didn't mind letting her go, as long as she would listen to what he had to say. The girl accused him of trying to deceive her with his excuses, and claimed that he had killed the Lord and stolen his skill. Our hero approached her and asked who, in her opinion, the demon lord was. Hearing this question, Kuro was taken aback. The young man then informed her that the demon lord was foolish enough to allow a simple goblin to steal his skills. The girl argued that the demon lord was actually cold-blooded, kind, and powerful, asserting that he was the greatest demon lord. Our hero countered, stating that he would never steal his skills. Hero continued to explain how the young man must have used some sort of trick. He decided to ask her again if her demon lord was dumb enough to fall for a sneaky trick and let his skills be stolen. The girl realized it was true, and it all sounded believable. Karen chimed in as she listened to their conversation. Then, turning to our hero, he asked why the goblin possessed the skill of the demon king. Seeing her reaction, our hero untied the girl, thinking that now he could have a conversation with her. He explained to the girl that the demon king had passed on this skill to him. Upon hearing this, the girl asked if the demon king really left the skill to him. Our hero spoke in the words of the demon king, telling the nameless goblin that he entrusted the rest to him. Hearing this voice, Kuro understood. Our hero mentioned that she knew how goblins were different, to which Kuro confirmed she had heard about it. Goblins could use a skill they didn't receive during the testament. Jumping up from her seat, she grabbed the goblin by the shoulders and exclaimed that it truly was the voice of the demon lord. Our hero suggested it was best for her to recognize this voice. The girl burst into tears and started sobbing while calling out to the demon lord right in front of our hero. Karen returned to the Count and reported the situation. The Count couldn't believe what Karen said, that the goblin had a long life and possessed the skills of a demon lord. As he stood in the church, the Count thought that God was going to destroy humanity. The Count Simon sat in his house, playing chess and pondering over the situation. The maid approached him and asked what was bothering him. The Count replied that no matter how much he thought about it, he felt at a disadvantage. The maid inquired about the disadvantageous situation, and the Count asked if she knew how to play charanga. When she confirmed that she knew the rules, the Count explained that winning the game was very difficult due to a unique rule. The maid asked if she had heard about the unique rule, and the Count continued his story, revealing that in this game, opponents could reuse the pieces they took from each other, but the pieces that were directly in front of each other would disappear from the board. The girl exclaimed that it was unfair, and the Count asked her again if this was truly the case. He then explained to her that this was exactly what the skill of the demon lord looked like. In the village, Kuro was watching our hero with tears in her eyes. After hearing her story, the young man thought that the girl must be feeling embarrassed. It was only natural since she had just met the goblin and cried in front of him. Turning to her, the young man commented on her worn-out clothes. In the next moment, our hero called for a goblin named Echigoya to ask if he was around. A goblin appeared and inquired about the village headman. It turned out that the goblin was from the 4th generation. Our hero pondered about the Echigoya skill group he had created before. He used to buy clothes from merchants who sold human clothing or clothing made by other monsters. The name Echigoya was derived from a kimono fabric shop in the Edo period. Although it evoked an image of the samurai period, it was simply a clothing shop. Our hero then turned to the little girl and asked for her name. She introduced herself as Kuro. Our hero suggested that he could sew clothes for her, and with a snap of his fingers, he appeared near the girl accompanied by many goblins. Kuro was confused and didn't understand what was happening. The goblins grabbed her, but she resisted without comprehending their intentions. Our hero reassured her that everything was fine and there was no need to resist. At that moment, she let out a scream, begging them to release her. Our hero, using his instincts, took control of the situation, and the girl obediently followed. The goblins carried her away, while Karen observed her restlessness. Suddenly, the goblins approached Karen and insisted that she accompany them. Confused, the girl wondered why she had to go as well. Observing Karen, our hero thought that she was starting to feel at home in our city. After the incident, our hero found himself back at his table when someone finally knocked on the door, apologizing for the delay. It was the village headman. As our hero turned around, he saw Karen and Kuro standing right in front of him. Looking at Kuro, our hero praised his master for his incredible work. The master thanked our hero and confirmed that it was indeed his creation. The goblin then mentioned that the master's skills included sewing, leatherworking, and spinning. Curious, the young man asked if the master had made all the clothes. The master proudly confirmed it, leaving our hero in awe of his talent. Hero, looking at our hero, questioned why Kuro was wearing those clothes. Our hero simply replied that she looked adorable and it pained him to see her in tattered rags, as she was too cute for that. The girl felt really embarrassed and asked the young man if he wanted her to look cute. Our hero replied affirmatively, making the young man realize that there are many different styles of women's clothing, which he found quite amusing to observe. At that moment, Kuro agreed and turned to Echigoya, asking what the girl wanted from him. However, she insisted on him making normal clothes instead, urgently approaching Karen. While Kuro was occupied with the master, our hero commented that the clothes really suited her. Carmen tried to intervene, but our hero turned to the girl and assured her that it was indeed true. Karen simply turned away feeling embarrassed and then examined her clothes, realizing that not only were they beautiful but also quite comfortable. Our hero understood that Karen had changed the topic of conversation. In that moment, Karen expressed her surprise, admitting that she never would have guessed that the master had made this fabric. The young man suggested that if this was the case, they should share his technique with others as a replacement. Hearing this, our hero told her that if this technique, derived from the goblin's skill, would be lost after 14 days, it would be better to pass it on to the people so that they could make better use of it. Karen exclaimed, "Wow! That's crystal clear!" Our hero chimed in, saying something along the lines of selling the technique and earning patent revenue. Karen, intrigued, asked Akira if he planned on becoming a demon lord. This caught our hero off guard, reminding him of Kuro's outburst when she expressed her disinterest in such a path. Karen, skeptical, pressed him for more information. Our hero explained that the mistake the demons made was using their skills solely for their subordinates. He mentioned how he had been reading books about the demon lord, and realized that using power for personal gain would only make him an enemy to the world. Karen then questioned if that was the reason. He wanted to propose the clothing technique. Our hero confirmed that was indeed the case, acknowledging that he may have inherited the demon lord's skill, but was determined not to repeat his mistakes. He asked Karen if she had any further inquiries. As our hero sat beside the dying goblin, Karen turned to the village elders and proudly shared that she had given birth to 6 children and lived a fulfilling life thanks to him. Our hero assured her that everything was now clear. In that moment, The goblin expressed gratitude, thanking him. Suddenly, our hero received a legacy of healing skills, while the goblins around them celebrated with drinks and dancing. Our hero sat nearby, contemplating the skills he had inherited. He realized that these skills were not uncommon and often became redundant. He had already acquired them 5 times, with around 300 skills in total. However, if it was considered a coincidence, then there were 500 of them. Creating the naming inheritance system had made him less likely to encounter goblins, but today he was specifically asked to do so. The redundancy of having 5 identical healing skills was one of the reasons why he had created this system. It would be better if the other goblins could eliminate each other and inherit new skills instead of him, as he had already collected enough. Since goblins only lived for 7 days, this system ensured that redundancy was not a concern. As he sat in the village, our hero thought that everything should be in order from now on. Although the accumulated redundancy burdened him, it was useless at this moment. Just then, Kuro approached our hero and called out to him. When he saw her, he couldn't help but think that she resembled a new employee who was unsure about the outcome of her work and felt out of place. Looking at Kuro, the young man complimented her on her new dress, saying that it suited her and looked pretty cute. Then the girl mentioned that receiving compliments wouldn't bring her happiness. Our hero responded by saying that it wasn't meant to flatter her. This made Kuro even more embarrassed. She then mentioned that her old clothes were worn out, so she didn't mind wearing them. Turning to our hero, Kuro expressed her desire to ask him something. When she inquired about how much time he had left in his life, our hero informed her that he possessed the skills of an 80-year-old creature. Compared to the mere 7 days of an ordinary goblin, he could live up to 80 years. The girl was taken aback by this revelation. She asked if such a skill truly existed. Our hero confidently stated that she would be surprised herself in a week. He mentioned that the rumors about goblins having various skills turned out to be true. This was because they were born and died quickly. The girl, intrigued, sat down next to our hero and asked if this was indeed the case. Our hero confirmed that goblins had a short life cycle and that their diversity in skills was not surprising since they were all born with them. During their conversation, Kuro admitted that she had never heard of the skill possessed by an 80-year-old creature. She asked if it was similar to the unique skill known as the Law of the Jungle. Curious about this unique skill, our hero asked if she meant the characteristic skill possessed by only one individual. Kuro gave a nod as our hero looked at the girl and asked if she possessed the same skills. The girl replied that Kuro did not have any unique abilities, except for the rare skills of search and farsightedness. Our hero mentioned that he had witnessed her using the search skill to find the demon lord's ability. He then revealed that he also possessed farsightedness, demonstrating it by showing his ability to see up to a kilometer away. When the girl noticed his glowing eyes, she exclaimed that she had the same ability. At that moment, she showcased her own glowing eyes. Our hero smiled, and everyone assumed that they got along very well. Even the village headmen found it amusing. However, in the next moment, the girl and our hero both became confused as they couldn't understand what was happening. It seemed that far-sightedness combined with far-sightedness resulted in a loss of their abilities. Kuro couldn't comprehend the situation either. Our hero suggested that she should try using far-sightedness now, but he reported that he seemed unable to use it anymore. It appeared that their skills had merged to create a higher-ranked skill, causing them to lose their individual abilities. Surprised, Kuro turned to our hero, wondering if this was truly possible. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the young man exclaimed, "Eureka!" catching the girl off guard and causing her to fall off her seat. She quickly asked what had happened. Our hero then proceeded to explain how he had discovered a practical use for his surplus skills. While everyone else sat around the fire, our hero stood near one of the goblins. Kuro curiously inquired about their activities, eyeing the 5 Hanzo. Our hero assumed that Hanzo was the leader of the group, possessing formidable attacking skills, and was trying to protect the village from Kuro. Turning to the goblin, our hero confidently mentioned his cloning ability. The goblin acknowledged it, and our hero decided to demonstrate the skill. In an instant, the goblin became bewildered as the skills blended and a shadow clone emerged. Intrigued, our hero asked about the new skill. The goblin replied that it was amazing, utilizing a shadow clone. Looking ahead, Hanzo attempted to discern if it differed from the old skill. Touching himself, Hanzo confirmed that all the clones were real, emphasizing that it was completely distinct. Our hero gazed at them and questioned if they were genuine, to which the clone replied affirmatively. Hero observed that they all appeared authentic, remarking that fighting someone who uses clones is futile unless they can locate the original. However, he added that they wouldn't achieve anything until they eliminated all the clones. Hanzo mentioned that the girl was speaking everything correctly. Each of them is a clone in the original, but one of them remains alive. Everything was going well as we listened to all of this. Our hero thought that the shadow clone is the next step in cloning evolution, and everyone was looking at Hanzo. They discussed how they were envious of him and decided to throw a party in his honor. Our hero pointed out that they had just celebrated, wondering if they ever got tired of it. They seemed to be very cheerful and celebrated every little thing. Just then, Hanzo, who was standing with our hero, had his hand pulled by Kuro. Hanzo asked if the girl could fight him again, and Kuro remarked that he was too cocky for a goblin. She confidently stated that she would bring him to his knees once more, and everyone started cheering for Kuro-san and Hanzo. They began their sparring match at that moment. Our hero cautioned them not to get too carried away. Karen stood beside the young man and expressed her surprise once again. She never thought it was possible to develop such skills. At this point, Karen was back in her armor. Our hero asked why she took off her dress again, and Karen explained that she couldn't wear it because she was on duty. Then, our hero turned to the girl and expressed his surprise. Karen asked if the hero had mentioned that he hadn't realized this earlier. Our hero confirmed and explained that if he had known, he would have used it a long time ago. Karen agreed, stating that it made logical sense. In order to improve one skill out of two, both the hero and his partner must possess the same skill. Then, the skill that he transferred would be absorbed. It seemed like a strict condition, but for goblins who have numerous skills and can transfer them frequently, it wasn't a problem. Karen then asked if this worked for everyone. The goblin pondered and replied that it was most likely. Karen further inquired if he was certain it only worked for goblins. The hero admitted his doubts, mentioning that he had already used this ability on Kuro, so it probably wasn't exclusive to goblins. Karen speculated that since the girl was also a monster, maybe it didn't work for others. Our hero agreed, realizing that he was now entering the realm of conjectures and assumptions. He recalled the moment when he was hit by a truck, and the voice spoke to him about the advanced search ability to transfer skills before his death. He couldn't help but think that this world had been specifically chosen through some kind of search engine. Today's incident only reinforced his belief in this world, where he unexpectedly found himself surrounded by a variety of skill combinations. This system aligned perfectly with his practice. In that moment, he reminisced about his previous life, where he praised his partner for passing the accounting exam. The young man revealed that he had studied while working as a tax consultant. Our hero couldn't help but be reminded of his past world. Suddenly, he started drawing something on the ground, leaving Karen astonished. Curious, the young man asked if she had ever seen such a game, explaining that it involved moving pieces and capturing the opponent's pieces in turns. Karen wondered if he meant the game of charanga. The goblin then explained what the game was called, referring to it as shogi. Our hero emphasized that the main difference between shogi and other similar games was the ability to reuse captured pieces without any restrictions. Karen mentioned that in chess, the pieces were divided into black and white, but you couldn't use the pieces you captured from your opponent. Our hero compared it to chess, but Karen had never heard of it before and asked if it was a game played by monsters. The young man clarified that it wasn't quite like that. Then he started explaining to her the nature of the game. In this game, the chess pieces are divided by the player's colors, and the symbols on the pieces change depending on the group they belong to. On the other hand, shogi has the same pieces on both sides, except for the king, which can be captured. Our hero then pondered that the same concept might apply to skills. If he were to be reincarnated in the world he dreamed of, he would probably have to live by these rules. He didn't want to sound too absurd to Karen, so he mentioned that sharing skills with other creatures wouldn't be a bad idea. Otherwise, people might perceive them as a serious threat. Karen remained silent, but our hero secretly thought that if he could share his skills to enhance the plot, it would be better to do so with everyone, including people. Suddenly, they heard a noise, and Karen asked what it was. The goblin mentioned the need to go and see, and in the next moment, they came across a group of people. One of them threatened to destroy all the pests if they continued to resist. The goblins started fighting back, and everyone else suggested that it might be time to stop, as they were wasting precious time on these games. Then the elder rushed over and inquired about the commotion. The goblins explained that the humans had suddenly launched an attack. Hanzo, wanting to protect them, stepped forward. Kuro suggested finishing off the humans, but Hanzo ordered everyone to stay put and observe. Our hero appealed to the people, urging them to cease the fight and come out to talk. This distracted the goblin, allowing the man to launch an attack. Hanzo managed to dodge and assured everyone he was unharmed. Witnessing this, our hero questioned why someone would do such a thing. The goblin asked people about the man's attack, which they found incomprehensible. Our hero then explained that the monster had stopped fighting, but the man couldn't understand what it meant and grew angry. He demanded to know who they were and pointed at Kuro. The four people reported that they had come to hunt down this demon. Akira wondered why and asked the man for a reason. He replied that they needed a justification to invade their land. He revealed that Kuro was one of the highest-ranking soldiers in the Demon Lord's army. Our hero asked if she had harmed anyone, to which the man confirmed. This revelation surprised our hero greatly. The man proposed that if they returned what was taken, he would spare the goblins. This enraged Kuro. In the next moment, our hero requested her to wait for a moment. The village had been acknowledged as autonomous by the Count. He asked if people were aware of it. The man turned to his people and inquired if they had heard about the Count's recognition of their autonomy. He mentioned that he had no idea who this goblin was that had approached him and tried to flatter the Count, but he didn't really care about it. The goblin then advised the man to carefully consider what the Count should say. However, the man responded by saying that he had already stated that he didn't care. The goblin then discussed the implications of not having permission, stating that they should immediately leave the village with their people, as they were violating its security. This was an official statement, which caused people to burst into laughter. Our hero couldn't comprehend what was so amusing about it. As he pondered over how smug the goblin was, they continued to discuss the official statement and laughed about it. Karen approached and mentioned that she had heard that they had untied their own hands. The goblins claimed that they had fulfilled all the necessary conditions to peacefully resolve the issue, referring to it as procedural justice. Our hero then turned to Hanzo and asked if he was already on his feet. Hanzo confirmed it and expressed gratitude for the help. The young guy also mentioned that Hanzo couldn't hold back anymore, and it was time to teach them a lesson. However, the guy just laughed and grabbed his sword, calling the goblins funny guys. Suddenly, Hanzo unleashed his technique, and shadow clones appeared in front of everyone. The guy asked if that was all Hanzo could do, claiming he would easily defeat the goblins. But to his surprise, the goblin swiftly took care of all his comrades. The guy couldn't comprehend how the goblin managed to do that. In the blink of an eye, the guy was lying unconscious, and our hero started talking about how he was done witnessing all of this. The goblins cheered, declaring Hanzo as the winner and suggesting to continue the party. Karen observed the scene and noticed a gloomy expression on the girl's face. Our hero approached her and asked what had happened. Karen explained that from that moment on, problems could arise. Our hero argued that they had done everything they could, and since the people were the ones who attacked first, there shouldn't be any issues. He questioned if this was true, and Karen confirmed it. However, she added that the problem was that one goblin had knocked down 4 cones, and she was certain that they would inform the military about the extent of their power. Upon hearing this, our hero was unsure if the 4 individuals tied to the tree were truly famous. As Akira observed them, he pondered if they were indeed as renowned as they appeared. He questioned the guy, asking if he didn't behave like a villain. Karen acknowledged the goblin's skepticism but emphasized their accomplishments. It wasn't just their warlike nature, they had defeated numerous monsters. Upon hearing this, our hero comprehended everything. Karen then turned to him and inquired if he had considered how to deceive everyone. Our hero admitted that he couldn't engage in such deceit. Karen asked if that meant he wasn't opposed to being feared. Our hero explained that if someone tried too hard to hide something, it would only make people more suspicious. Even if the person was innocent, they would still be under suspicion, claiming they had no weapons when they actually did. The Goblin stated that today's events were not solely for self-defense, so it was acceptable if they were exposed. If the authorities were more cautious, it could even work in their favor. Additionally, people should have an idea of what to expect from them gradually. To start negotiating on equal terms, it would be ideal if they became more cautious. However, our hero realized that he couldn't say that outright. After being asked again by Karen, he explained that if ordinary people started fearing them, it would create a real problem. They wouldn't be able to determine who was right or wrong. Our hero understood that the people in this world were just like Karen, even though he didn't have control over as many people. The people in this world and his world weren't so different. The Goblin also mentioned that if today's incident was portrayed incorrectly, it would surely scare many people and evoke different emotions. As they arrived in the city, everyone was dressed beautifully, causing confusion as to whether they were goblins or not, because they appeared very serious. Upon seeing everyone, Kuro, who was sitting upstairs, tried to figure out who this girl was, possibly a goblin princess, but no one knew for sure. They simply commented on how cute she was. The night before, everyone had discussed their plan, and our hero addressed everyone, stating that Echigoya needed to urgently make 2 sets of clothes. Firstly, an official outfit for Hanzo, which Echigoya agreed to provide, and secondly, an outfit for Kuro. The girl was taken aback when she heard about Kuro. Our hero suggested that she needed something cute, like a princess, and encouraged Echigoya to try her best. Kuro, feeling embarrassed, asked if the young men liked it. He assured her that she would look perfect, but she reluctantly agreed to do it since he insisted so much. Our hero then asked what else she would like to ask. As Kuro listened attentively while riding the horse, she recalled their conversation from the previous day. Everyone noticed the horns on her head and wondered if she belonged to a different race. They asked if it was all right to leave them alone. Suddenly, someone threw a stone at her. One of the men warned everyone not to fall for it, as they didn't want the goblins to enter the city. He mentioned that they had 4 dirty monsters in a cage. Seeing the people throwing stones, Kuro became furious. However, she spotted our hero calling her and asking her not to seek revenge, even if they were attacked. Right now, another stone came flying towards Kuro, but Goblin Hanzo swiftly managed to throw it away. The man was confused and didn't understand what had just happened. Kuro, however, put on a sweet face and claimed that she was scared. This instantly won over the hearts of the people who scolded the man for his ugly actions towards helpless girls. Karen mentioned that the situation suddenly took a turn for the better, just as Akira had planned. Our hero credited Hansel for standing up for Kuro, which became the pivotal moment of the performance. Thanks to Hanzo's convincing act, people started to sympathize without questioning further. Karen didn't have any more questions, so he explained that anyone could easily imagine a story of knights protecting their princess. Meanwhile, the Count received a letter about the goblin's threat level. After reading it, he realized that dealing with a goblin with a long lifespan, the skills of a demon lord, and a bag full of tricks required being prepared for anything. 4 guards were assigned to protect the Count's castle, and our hero walked alongside Kuro as they approached the castle. Kuro asked if it was the king's castle, but our hero clarified that it belonged to the Count, who was still a respected person. Then the girl was taken aback, completely surprised. She could only stand there and watch as our hero greeted the old man. The old man expressed his relief that his friend had arrived. Our hero took turns standing in front of Simon, reassuring him that there was nothing to worry about. He didn't want the young man to blame himself for anything, as he hadn't done anything wrong. Our hero expressed his hope that Simon would understand and asked about the other goblins. The young man explained that he had sent them home, especially those whose days were numbered. Upon hearing this, the old man expressed his disappointment. He had heard from someone watching the parade that there was a particularly cold-blooded goblin, and he was curious to see how menacing it looked. He then turned to Kuro, who was standing beside the young man, and asked if she was the girl he had heard about. Our hero confirmed that she was indeed the one. The adventurers were on a hunt for Kuro, so there was no point in hiding it. After some thought, the young man decided to bring her here. Speaking to the old man, our hero assured him that Kuro would not harm anyone. The old man, trusting his friend's words, asked if our hero had any plans for the day. The Count enjoys living life to the fullest, so he is impressed by a genuine man. It seems he has a particular interest in lustful creatures like our hero. The young man was happy when the Count invited him, but he couldn't bring Kuro to such a place. Our hero thought about this for a moment, and suddenly the girl became intrigued by something. Kuro used her gift of far-sightedness and noticed a lot of birds with named tags on their legs. She explained to the old man that she didn't have excellent eyesight, but it was all thanks to the science of far-sightedness that she received from Akira. The old man agreed, and Akira asked what it was. The old man replied that it was better to see it once than to hear about it 100 times. They then arrived at an unusual place, and the old man explained that it was a trendy game among upper-class women. Each person releases their bird and competes to see which one lands on a branch first. Our hero commented that it was quite elegant to release the nightingale and let it perch on a branch. Ordinary people wouldn't understand the thoughts of socialites, our hero thought. The old man mentioned that a widow he knew had asked him for a talented nightingale and was deeply involved in their training. If she succeeded in surpassing other ladies, she promised to do something for him. Our hero inquired further, and the man revealed that the young man saw through his intentions. Our hero pondered to himself that if they were discussing widows, the situation was quite clear. Interrupting his thoughts, the old man suggested that they should perhaps play a game, turning to his friend, as he wanted to test them. Our hero was taken aback and exclaimed that he didn't have any saliva with him, but the old man had brought some. He requested 2 nightingales to play with. In the next moment, the old man proposed that they simply argue about which of them would perch on the branch. Upon hearing this, our hero agreed, stating that everything was now clear. The old man then suggested that since they had started this, they should place a bet. Upon hearing this, the old man declared that if he won, he would take one of our hero's goblins, which our hero did not anticipate. The old man added that there was probably someone with our hero who sewed well, as they would make beautiful clothes for the lady's goblin. Our hero was completely caught off guard by this statement and asked what would happen if he emerged victorious. Then the elderly man mentioned that he would take steps to prevent such incidents from occurring again in the future. He planned to manipulate the situation by altering the course of events. Observing the change in the old man's expression, our hero understood that he desired for people to cease pursuing Kuro. It seemed like a challenging task, but our hero eventually agreed with his reasoning. The old man expressed no surprise, stating that our hero could select any nightingale from the 2 cages in front of them. Evaluating the 2 options, our hero decided to choose the one he was pointing at. The old man confirmed that his choice would be the adjacent one. As they stood beside the nightingales, the birds would not take flight. This revelation surprised our hero. Then, Kuro took our hero's hand and explained that when the bird was about to perch on a branch, its leg was pulled back. It was difficult to notice, but there was a transparent thread tied around it, as the girl revealed. In the blink of an eye, Kuro felt the urge to address the Count. However, our hero cleverly employed the law of the jungle and motioned for her to stay quiet. Subsequently, the girl remained silent. The Count then declared his victory, to which our hero admitted defeat. He mentioned that he would bring Echigoya here the following day. Expressing gratitude, the Count carefully observed our hero's reaction. Suddenly, the Count began writing a letter and retreated to his room. Karen inquired if the Count had called her, and he presented her with the just-sealed letter. Karen asked about its contents, and the Count explained that it was a letter from his superiors, inquiring about the goblin threat level. He considered it as the response to their query. Intrigued, Karen wondered what the Count had replied, and he revealed that he had outsmarted our hero through a gambling trick. He deliberately avoided using cards to prevent him from being overly cautious. However, the goblin obediently backed away without causing a scene and doesn't pose much of a threat, Karen replied. There was a renowned goblin slayer, whose name alone spoke volumes. Among the various races inhabiting the surface, humans were considered one of the weakest. However, they made up for it with their sharp intellect. Humans had devised ingenious countermeasures against stronger races, crafting lethal weapons infused with magic. Even a mere scratch from one of these weapons could result in instant death for the chosen race. Rumor had it that 3 types of assassins were created: Dragon Slayer, Demon Slayer, and Goblin Slayer. Goblins, despite their short lifespan, posed a significant threat, capable of harming countless individuals. Aware of this, Akira ventured into the forest and discovered a village inhabited by goblins. He urged everyone to evacuate slowly. Suddenly, a man appeared before him, rudely telling him to be quiet and mocking him for trying to imitate humans. Akira was utterly perplexed by the man's words, unable to comprehend his intentions. It seemed that the man was resolute in his beliefs. The man then declared that he would personally punish the goblin before it could harm anyone. The moment after, Akira launched an attack, unleashing black flames against his opponent. These black flames were a combination of 2 flame skills, forming a powerful force. After sending the goblin to the afterlife, Akira inherited an enhanced innate skill, specifically aimed at his opponent. Confused, his opponent couldn't comprehend where the attack was coming from. Akira then engulfed him in fire, jokingly telling him to burn until the very last drop of blood. Of course, Akira didn't actually harm the man and restrained himself. Deep down, he felt a sense of excitement, reminiscent of his middle school days, when he admired such things. As the defeated knight struggled to calm down, Akira realized that if he let him go, he would simply return to cause trouble again. Driven by his strong sense of justice, Akira couldn't allow that. It seemed that the knight was lost in his own narcissism, believing he could save the world one day. To put an end to this, Akira invoked the law of the jungle, making it clear that his enemy was strictly forbidden to attack, and mentioned that from that point forward, the individual could preemptively attack the goblins. The knight acknowledged this, and promised to never again attack the goblins without giving them a warning. The goblin pondered to himself that not being able to attack freely would be disadvantageous. Suddenly, Karen noticed the expression on Akira's face when he unleashed the black flames, resembling that of a demon king. She grabbed her sword, but then questioned if it was only her who saw such things. As Akira approached the knight, he stated that he was strictly prohibited from attacking. But now, he had to proactively engage the goblins. The knight understood this. Observing the scene, Karen realized that a man who is willing to die for justice can easily change his mind without hesitation. She remembered the demon lord's skill, the law of the jungle, which could compel enemies to submit in absolute obedience. Karen wondered if Goblin Slayer alone would be enough to defeat Akira, and if her own mind would also be conquered. In the next moment, Akira finished dealing with his opponent and approached Karen. The knight and Akira ventured deeper into the forest. Akira then asked Karen what had happened. Karen replied that nothing had occurred, but Akira, looking at her closely, remarked that her face was deathly pale. When he attempted to approach her, Karen startled and exclaimed that Akira had once again grown even stronger. Catching sight of the flame, Akira claimed that he had inherited it from the goblin he had trained with the previous day. He mentioned that it was a combined skill, and asked Karen if he could also inherit her abilities. Akira then suggested that it seemed possible. Karen, realizing that the other goblins would also grow stronger thanks to Akira, understood that the Count's assurance of control was not enough. She acknowledged that relying solely on the goblin killers would not solve the problem in the long run. Karen pondered the situation and decided to follow Akira back to the village. As Akira returned to his hut, he was interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. Inviting the visitor in, he turned around to find Karen standing before him, having removed her cloak and now only in her underwear. Akira was perplexed by her actions and couldn't comprehend her intentions. Then the girl didn't bother explaining anything and rushed towards Akira, forcefully pushing him onto the table. Karen, who was standing right above him, looked embarrassed and confused. The young man couldn't comprehend what she wanted. In the next moment, he snapped his fingers and a cape appeared on top of Karen. She couldn't understand why he did it. That's when the goblin chimed in, saying that he did it because of her distressed state. Akira silently regretted telling the girl about his secret visit, realizing it seemed suspicious. He thought to himself, Karina must be up to something. He couldn't imagine her seducing or flirting with him, as it wasn't her style. However, the thought of why the girl pinned him to the table lingered in his mind. He decided it wasn't worth asking about. Turning to Karen, he explained that goblins were not susceptible to seduction. This revelation surprised her greatly. Akira went on to explain that just like with Echigoya or Hanzo, Karen shouldn't perceive them in a sexual way. He emphasized that purebred goblins don't lust after humans. After hearing this, Karen grasped the entirety of what Akira had said. She swiftly ran away from him, urging him to forget about what had transpired. She apologized to him, leaving Akira utterly perplexed. The girl had already vanished, leaving him to realize that it was a classic white lie. However, he couldn't deceive himself. Reflecting on the girl, Akira found it incredibly challenging to comprehend why Karen had done this to him. Karen sprinted through the forest, evading the mischievous goblins. When they caught sight of her, they couldn't fathom why she was running or what had occurred. Concealing herself behind the trees, she suddenly realized that someone had spotted her. It was one of the goblins, who happened to be gathering something in the forest. He inquired about her presence and the state of her clothes. The goblin assumed he had it all figured out since her clothes were being washed. Consequently, he suggested that she sew new clothes for Karen and wait in the same spot. As Carmen gazed at the goblin, she comprehended that they didn't react to her nudity. She complied with the Count's wishes by orchestrating this embarrassing scene, rather than admitting her own foolishness in disregarding racial differences. She had audaciously placed the blame on the Count for everything. However, that wasn't the issue. She didn't believe she had the bravery to kill Akira. She was unsure of what she could do. Then out of nowhere, someone announced that they would handle it. In the blink of an eye, the girl heard footsteps approaching. It was the headman and the goblin walking through the forest. When they reached the spot where Karen was, they noticed the cape she had been wearing, now stained with blood. The goblin explained that he had brought clothes for Karen, but she had vanished somewhere. After examining the clothes, Akira sat down, feeling defeated. The goblin expressed his hope that the girl was safe. In that moment, Akira told the goblin to leave, but he didn't comprehend anything. Akira realized that the goblin wasn't built for combat and wouldn't be able to react quickly. Suddenly, Akira began screaming and unleashed black flames, not knowing what they were up against, but determined to destroy everything around them. The goblin couldn't grasp what was happening, and Akira urged him to run faster towards the village. Akira understood that the sense of imminent danger hadn't disappeared and couldn't figure out where the killer was, demanding them to reveal themselves. In the next instant, Akira used the flash, illuminating everything. Akira spotted a man standing atop the mountain, holding Karen. In the blink of an eye, he forcefully pushed her down, causing Akira to instinctively try to catch her. In that moment, he wondered if Karen was all right. Suddenly, someone attacked Akira with a dagger, catching him off guard. He looked down and realized he had been wounded. Blood started dripping onto Karen, leaving him confused and unable to comprehend what was happening. The man standing in front of him smirked, but Akira managed to escape using his special skill. Akira then pursued the man, utilizing his shadow clone technique, an advanced skill inherited from Hanzo, to evade his opponent. As he turned to face the goblin, Akira asked if that was all. Without hesitation, he used a gravestone to strike his opponent, employing a powerful stone rain skill. In the midst of the chaos, he noticed a fallen knife and tried to make sense of its significance. Stepping on the ground next to the man, he saw the dagger that had pierced his clone. Akira felt an overwhelming sense of danger, as if death itself was targeting him. Karen stood up and revealed that it was a goblin slayer. Akira had a sudden realization that Karen was alive and awake. As he returned to the village, Karen looked at him. They stopped at Akira's house, where Karen was getting dressed. The goblin apologized for not being able to sew clothes as well as Echigoya. Then Karen drank a drink and reassured the goblin that it was nothing. She thanked him, and the goblin slayer laid in front of her. Akira looked at the weapon and realized that it was specifically designed for killing goblins. Just a simple touch from it could instantly kill a goblin. He felt a mortal threat emanating from the weapon. Akira fought, keeping his eyes on the weapon. He then turned to Karen and the Goblin and asked about the stacker. Karen explained that it was a weapon designed to kill goblins, and Simon still saw a threat in him. Karen was surprised and asked if the young man really knew. Akira replied that he had guessed, as the old man was still cunning. It wasn't surprising that he was up to something. Karen asked if Akira was angry, but he reassured her that he wasn't. He understood how the old man felt because he was a politician. If he loses his eyesight, it could become a major problem. This was obvious, but why did everyone avoid the topic? The girl didn't understand what he was talking about. Akira mentioned that based on the way they tried to kill him, he was a real enemy to them, like a monster. So why didn't they send a punishment squad or troops, like they did before? The girl agreed, realizing that the Count never acted directly. He reported to his superiors that there were no issues, but secretly prepared countermeasures. Akira was surprised by this revelation, realizing it was an unusual situation. Karen suggested that they should ask the Count himself about his intentions, as no one would simply kill the monster. They visited the Count, who seemed defeated in his chair. Karen then apologized sincerely, admitting that she couldn't kill the Goblin killer or seduce Akira. At that moment, Akira stood by her side, feeling guilty. The old man understood everything and asked why Akira had come. Did he want to take his life? Then our protagonist expressed his desire to hear the old man's version of the story. However, the old man seemed to be confused and didn't quite grasp what Akira meant. Undeterred, Akira carried on, questioning why the old man had avoided a direct confrontation with him. In response, the old man explained that the Goblin race had the ability to adapt to their surroundings. Intrigued by this revelation, Akira inquired further. The old man went on to explain that if goblins lived in dry areas, they would develop resistance to heat, and in cold climates their bodies would adapt to the cold. Even in the face of drastic changes, goblins could easily adapt within just a few generations. Reflecting on this, Akira drew a parallel to the theory of evolution. The Count then chimed in, mentioning that around 50 years ago, the entire goblin race was on the brink of extinction due to some insignificant reason. However, he brushed off the details and focused on the fact that people had started actively destroying goblins. Upon hearing this, Karen asked if it was true. The old man continued, sharing that the remaining goblins had indeed adapted to the new conditions. Confirming this, the old man revealed that the last surviving goblin had acquired an entirely new skill. The effects of the goblin's immortality were threefold. Firstly, it meant that the last surviving goblin could not be killed, no matter what Akira tried. This skill was crucial for the survival of the last goblin. Secondly, it led to useless reproduction, as he multiplied into hundreds of descendants in exchange for his own life. It turned out that he was the ancestor of all living goblins. The old man confirmed this. Lastly, the goblin could use all the skills possessed by other goblins. This revelation surprised both Karen and Akira. The old man continued to explain that this goblin had thousands of skills and had killed 1,000 people. Although the community hardly remembered this, he took extra precautions when destroying goblins at the village level. Akira realized that if they had attacked the village first, the goblin's development would have been unknown. The old man emphasized that the goblin fought in the right direction, attracting attention due to his extraordinary abilities. Akira had previously mentioned that they judged others based on their failures, so it was important not to repeat the same mistakes. Otherwise, Akira might create a new species. Turning to the young man, the old man asked if he was too carefree. However, our protagonist voiced his opinion that the Count didn't quite grasp his meaning. Akira didn't mention that a series of errors could lead to a dead end. Instead, he believed it was a direct path to success as long as individuals acknowledged their mistakes and moved forward. Eventually, they would achieve success. Surprisingly, the old man revealed that the goblin had taught him this valuable lesson. Who would have thought that his friend, the goblin, would lecture him on psychology? The old man expressed his admiration, and our embarrassed hero admitted that he would feel even more embarrassed if he received praise. In response, the old man stood up and asked what they could do differently. In simpler terms, everything boiled down to transforming the goblin from a threat into an asset. Turning to the Count, they inquired if he had any further questions regarding the situation. The goblin suggested that the old man may have deemed him too dangerous, hence sending an assassin. Surprisingly, the old man confirmed this to be true, although he could have harmed him. However, Karen interrupted, stating that the Count genuinely believed he could trust Akira, despite constantly expressing suspicion towards him. In that moment, both of Akira's realized they couldn't let Karen in on their secret affairs. The old man mentioned that these were men's secrets, but Karen didn't have a clue about them. Akira just chuckled. Then, the old man clarified that even if he trusted Akira, it didn't mean that other aristocrats would acknowledge him. Akira turned to Simon and expressed his desire to ask him something. Simon inquired about what it was. Akira explained that he wanted to discuss the influence of immortality on people. The old man shared his beliefs on the matter, while the young man stated that influential individuals worldwide were also striving for it. It seemed like this reality was no different. Suddenly, the old man interrupted Akira's thoughts and asked about his plans. To avoid revealing his intention of spreading the information about immortality, Akira assured the old man that he had no such plans. It was clear that powerful people sought immortality, but some of them were driven by greed. The young man assured that he wouldn't make such mistakes. Perplexed, the old man couldn't understand why Akira asked him this question. The young man explained that people were searching for immortality and desired to reach the pinnacle. The old man pondered if this was indeed the case. Then Simon mentioned that he probably agreed, and Akira went towards the cage with the bird. He opened the cage, and Karen looked on. The old man asked what Akira was planning to do. In response, Akira apologized to the bird that he had taken out, and in the next moment, he used a needle to end its life. Witnessing this, Karen shouted at Akira, questioning his actions. Akira then used a powerful healing ability on the bird to revive it. In the next moment, the bird flew back into the sky, fully alive. Seeing this, Karen asked how it was possible. Akira explained that it was a skill called Great Healing, which had the power to heal anything as long as the target was alive. Hearing this, Karen asked if it was a combined skill or not. Akira admitted that it was indeed a combined skill. As they watched the bird soar in the sky, the old man exclaimed how amazing it was. He also mentioned that ordinary healing skills couldn't heal a pierced heart, but the young man claimed that the Great Healing skill could. Suddenly, the bird sought revenge on Akira by marking his forehead. The young man apologized to Mr. Nightingale, and Karen tried to wipe and assist Akira, stating that these consequences would serve as a lesson to him. In the next moment, the old man burst into laughter. Akira's were taken aback and asked the Count what had happened. The Count explained that it seemed to be something valuable. Upon hearing this, Akira was thrilled, and mentioned that the Count could be their lifeline, as you never know when or where you might get injured. Akira then recalled a situation when he was hit by a truck on his way home. The old man interrupted and stated that if the young man could heal anything, the aristocrats wouldn't be in danger from the goblin. The old man believed that the young man's value would surpass the threat. He mentioned that he was in business and asked the young man to provide this healing skill to him. He was confident that with it, he could win. The goblin thanked the old man and said he had to thank him as well. The old man replied that it was all for his friend. The young man assured them that he would send a goblin with the healing skill as soon as possible. The old man didn't understand why a simple healing skill was so important, but Karen, who was observing them, couldn't comprehend anything at all. In the next moment, Akira whispered in Karen's ear that the goblin's healing skill could restore energy in the lower half of his body. Akira whispered as he heard this. The old man burst into laughter, exclaiming that it was marvelous and exactly what he had expected from his friend. He patted Akira on the back. Meanwhile, Karen carefully observed the nightingale as it fluttered around the room. Afterward, Akira walked out of the door. The old man apologized to Karen, who was taken aback by his words. He assured her that he had never intended to harm her. Karen, in turn, reassured him that he was not to blame for anything, and that she was hurt due to her own experiences. However, she asked if the old man truly agreed with Akira's proposal. The old man replied that the young man was akin to a remarkable individual. Karen was surprised by this statement. The old man continued, explaining that Akira possessed the strength of a goblin, the longevity and knowledge of a human, and the skills of a demon king. Although he acknowledged that Akira could be a potential threat, the old man believed that they should have placed their trust in him. Smiling, Karen agreed with him. A few days later, Akira visited Simon and inquired about his well-being. Simon expressed his need for forgiveness. Akira asked what had happened, to which the old man responded that the information had received a positive response, and soon he would be able to showcase his abilities. Akira was taken aback when he heard this, and thought to himself that everything was going according to plan. He then inquired about the situation from the old man. Suddenly, he hesitated as a third person joined the conversation. When Akira saw him, he noticed a handsome young man approaching. The young man claimed to be the same goblin and shook Akira's hand, causing him to feel quite embarrassed. Akira asked the old man who this stranger was, and he revealed that it was Prince Albert South Windsor, who had an aristocratic appearance and sparkled. Akira couldn't help but admire the prince's regal demeanor. The old man then turned to Prince Albert and mentioned that he was the one who had dealt the fatal blow to the Demon King. Akira was astonished to learn this, realizing that the prince was not as simple as he seemed. The young man then asked the prince how he managed to injure the Demon King, to which the prince replied that it was due to his skill of 7 attempts. Akira deduced that the prince had failed multiple times before succeeding, defying the law of the jungle. Addressing Akira, the prince acknowledged his intelligence and expressed his intention to demonstrate how it all worked. Akira was initially hesitant, but the prince insisted. So Akira asked again about the person who defeated the Demon King, thinking that he must be important. He wanted to know how this person was able to wound him. The prince replied that it was a secret, looking at Akira. Akira understood that if this person could defeat the Demon King, he wouldn't easily reveal his secret. Akira wondered if he had correctly understood that he had injured the Demon King. The young man confirmed it, and Akira thought that maybe he could defeat him too. Akira then asked if this somehow goes against the law of the jungle, as it helps to avoid mistakes. The prince realized that Akira was smart and thought that he had guessed correctly. He also realized that he had gone a bit too far. The prince laughed and said that he wanted to talk to Akira as soon as possible. Akira was surprised by this, and the prince explained that he wanted to meet the person who had wounded the Demon King and inherited his skill. Akira realized that everything was truly interesting. And then he mentioned that his great-uncle definitely knew his stuff, but his methods were quite peculiar, to say the least. Remember all the techniques of our elderly gentleman. Our protagonist understood that this was indeed true, and the old man had no clue what the guys were discussing. In the next instant, they all headed towards the Count's estate together and decided to enjoy some tea and sweets. While sipping tea, Akira observed the prince and thought he looked graceful even while drinking. Suddenly, Akira turned to Simon and asked, stating that he was Prince Albert's great-uncle. The old man confirmed it, and the prince clarified that he was his father's uncle. Then, Akira recalled that Karen had already mentioned this, but it was still strange to comprehend that such an elderly man was the emperor's uncle. Turning to the old man, Akira discussed the significance of the prince being almost like the old man's grandson. The old man confirmed it, mentioning that he had taken care of the prince since birth. Of course, he's a good lad, but not without a flaw. Upon hearing this, the old man added that the prince only had one bride. Akira was taken aback, but the prince remained silent at that moment. Then the grandfather started saying that he didn't mind the prince taking care of his legal wife, but it was terrible to entrust the country to a man who had only been with one woman. Akira was surprised by this, as he thought all princes were ladies' men, especially ones like the prince. The prince then explained that this was why he didn't fully trust his grandfather's choice, especially when it came to the dangerous goblin. He had heard that the goblin could father many children in a single night. Akira, taken aback by the prince's words, agreed that it was quite possible. It then dawned on him that he had been living with the goblins for 6 months, and if they desired, they could produce 300 children in one night. He realized that his own sexual desires were incomparable to that of a human. Interrupting his thoughts, the prince revealed that this was why he wanted to confront the goblin. On another note, the prince asked if Akira would provide the great healing for free. After hesitating, Akira began to ponder, as this was a crucial matter. He stated that he would consult with them to resolve the issue, whether to do it for free or accept a generous reward. He thought there was another option, and the prince took responsibility for it. The young man agreed, saying he felt the same way. The prince called the young man a demon and said it would be suspicious if he didn't accept a reward. Akira thought that if he played his cards right, he could increase his value without becoming a target. He could even help some people for free. But Albert disagreed, saying it was safer to charge rich people who wouldn't understand free treatment. Akira then said he would only accept a good reward from those who could afford it. The prince suggested that ordinary people could receive free treatment. He smiled, and the grandfather watched him closely. When Akira left, the prince stood by the window and pondered. The old man asked if he had seen enough from the window and if he planned to defeat the goblin. The prince replied that the goblin didn't seem like an enemy. The old man was surprised by his reasoning, and the prince said that the young man thought like a true man, even if the chances of winning were 50-50. Upon hearing this, the elderly man burst into laughter. Despite the young man being alone now and appearing rational, it would be incredibly challenging to fight someone who was smiling and gazing out the window. The prince pondered whether they had made the right choice, hoping they had. The old man expressed his reluctance to cause a commotion again. Curious, the young man asked if his grandfather truly believed in this goblin. The old man confirmed it to be true. In response, the young man proposed that he be seen as the next demon king in the eyes of the people. The grandfather, taken aback, said that he heard this and was very surprised by the proposal. Meanwhile, as Akira strolled through the forest, he contemplated Prince Albert, their hero, potentially becoming their enemy. In such a scenario, they needed to figure out how he had surpassed the Demon King's skills. Akira considered the possibility of it being a mistake, but regardless, their hero had already defeated the Demon King once. Unsure if it was worth resorting to the law of the jungle, Akira thought deeply. Suddenly he encountered Kuro, who was walking in the forest. The girl was delighted to see him, and Akira inquired if there was something peculiar about this place. She replied, saying that she felt a sense of nostalgia. Akira looked around, feeling a sense of confusion. He couldn't grasp the concept of nostalgia, so he decided to ask Kuro if this place seemed familiar to her. After a moment of contemplation, Kuro shook her head. Determined to capture the essence of this moment, Akira picked up a twig and began sketching. In no time, he drew a portrait of a prince on the ground. When Kuro saw the sketch, she was amazed and praised Akira's artistic skills. Curiosity got the better of Akira, and he asked if Kuro had ever seen this man before. She replied that she hadn't. Albert's actions, inflicting a fatal wound on the Demon King, made Akira worry about Kuro's future resentment towards Albert and how it might affect their relationship. However, since Kuro didn't know him, Akira reassured himself that everything would be fine. Lost in his thoughts, he pondered if Albert's abilities extended beyond what they knew, which would explain why Kuro couldn't see him. Realizing the need to continue the conversation, Akira was interrupted by Kuro abruptly turning around and running away, claiming that someone was there. As she looked back, she saw people in the forest, tending to something and then being attacked. Outraged, she told them to leave and question their audacity. Several bodies lay wrapped in front of the people, and they explained that they had actually come to help. At that moment, Akira confronted him, telling him to stop pretending to take hostages. However, the man insisted on attacking the goblin. Akira then unleashed a black flame, leaving Kuro astonished. He declared that the games were over, having learned about the goblin's skill. People had given it a name, which surprised Akira. He revealed 3 bags, claiming that those 3 had attacked him for a valid reason. He questioned them, but people told the goblin to keep quiet, as goblins couldn't speak. In response, Akira used his power, causing everyone to freeze. He created a shadow clone and asked if they wanted to repeat the question. People ran away, smiling. Kuro, thinking it was impressive to burn people, didn't realize it was all staged. Akira clarified that he hadn't killed anyone and questioned why the girl had attacked them while talking about him. The girl revealed that they were her friends, removing their hoods to show Irene, Dyke, and Eunomia. Kuro stated that they were her comrades. Akira was surprised to learn that they were also part of the Demon King's army. The moment they arrived at the camp, they laid them down. Kuro asked if they would be all right, and the young man replied that he had healed their wounds with powerful healing, but they were still very tired, especially Irene and Eunomia. The girl asked what they should do now, while Karen watched them leave the house. Akira said that they needed to do one thing first and called for Masamune to see if she was there. Masamune was the leader of the group and had great culinary skills. The girl ran up to Akira and asked if the headman had called her, named after Masamune, a famous military leader in gourmet. At the end of the Sengoku Jira, Sendai Miso, Machi Datemaki, frozen tofu, all these dishes were associated with the name Masamune. Then, the young man turned to Masamune and asked if she could make 2 revolutionary dishes. The girl gave a thumbs up and said it would be easy and nutritious. Seeing that everyone was ready to help, Kuro said she would assist the goblin. The next moment, they went down together. Akira thought that it seemed like she truly valued them. At that moment, one of the girls woke up and stood in front of Akira. Then Akira inquired about the girl's well-being as he knelt down. She expressed her gratitude for his help, and the young man assured her that everything was fine. Curious about her name, he asked her, and she introduced herself as Daik, the middle sister. Akira suggested that she could call him Akira. However, when she addressed him as Akira-sama, he felt that the honorific prefix was unnecessary. The girl mentioned that she overheard their conversation with Kuro and realized that Akira had become the successor to the Demon King. Akira acknowledged that his skills had indeed been passed down to him, but he was puzzled as to why the girl was in such a distressed state. He thought that their journey must have been arduous, with their arriving wounded and them facing persecution from people. However, the girl clarified that it was not the case. They were exhausted because the Demon King had died. Perplexed, Akira asked her to explain further. Falling to her knees before him, she implored Akira to order her sisters to live. This request left the young man utterly confused, as he couldn't comprehend how he could give such an order. There are hardly any elves left now, only 3 sisters remain. Elves are known for their long lifespans, so long that they lose interest in everything, including the desire to start a family. Akira couldn't understand how someone could lose interest in things, but the girl explained that in order to live, one needs to eat regularly. However, Irene and Eunomia had long lost interest in food. This surprised Akira, as he couldn't fathom how they could be so indifferent towards something that could weaken and even kill them. The girl mentioned a disease that affects some elves, causing them to lose the will to live. Realizing that only 3 of them were left, Daik turned to the Demon King for help. The Demon King possessed a unique skill, the law of the jungle, which compelled others to carry out any orders given to them. If they were ordered to live, this skill would fill the void and they would do it without question. However, Daik reported that the Demon King had passed away, leaving the sisters unable to carry out the order. Concerned, the young man asked the girl if she was all right, and she reassured him that she wasn't affected by the disease. So far, she had managed to provide them with food. However, upon looking at the 2 emaciated girls, Akira realized the severity of their condition. They appeared pale and barely showed signs of life. It was painful for Akira to witness. Ben Daik turned to Akira and suggested that he should give them the command to live. Akira agreed, and upon hearing this, the girls became inspired. They believed that this command would help save their lives. In that moment, Akira contemplated how they could activate the law of the jungle. He then asked the girl to wake up her sisters, and Daik instructed her 2 sisters to wake up as well. When they woke up, they asked what their sister wanted from them. Daik stood beside them, and Akira requested their support. Suddenly, Akira used the gravestone to attack them. Daik, confused, couldn't comprehend what was happening. The girls were then propelled far away, and Daik ran towards them. At that moment, Akira declared that they were the 2 who were ordered to live and utilize the law of the jungle. The girls obeyed and expressed their willingness to live. Kuro, in the meantime, prepared food for the sick. When she saw her sisters, she was overjoyed. When the girls spotted Kuro, they were overjoyed and shared a meal with her. Akira believed that everything was going smoothly until he suddenly started coughing up blood. He needed to heal himself in order to activate the law of the jungle and win the battle. But how could he defeat the two astonished elves without becoming a victim himself? He used his attacking skill to redirect the damage towards the selected target. Meanwhile, the Demon King's actions remained a mystery. Karen approached him and asked Akira what he was up to. Akira seemed surprised by the question, and the girl remarked that it was unlike him. Akira admitted that he thought no one had noticed, but then Dyke, turning to the guy, expressed her gratitude for his help with her sisters. Akira humbly stated that it was unnecessary, as he didn't even require the law of the jungle to swear allegiance. Dyke insisted that she would serve him from now on and that he could ask her for anything. Akira awkwardly declined, explaining that it wasn't needed. Akira called out to Echigoya and asked if he was present, introducing him to 3 elves and promising to make them clothes since they didn't have any. Then the goblin assured that everything would go smoothly, and Dyke, upon hearing this, reassured Akira that he didn't need to worry. The goblin then instructed the other goblins to help with the washing if they weren't busy. Kuro also volunteered to assist. Meanwhile, the goblins took Dyke away, and she looked back at Akira with immense gratitude. The young man noticed Karen sitting and reading, so he approached her and explained that he needed her help to contact Simon. When Karen asked what Akira wanted, he told her to inform Simon that he had trained 3 elf sisters who used to serve the Demon King, and that he could control them using the law of the jungle. He emphasized that Simon should be aware of this. Upon hearing this, Karen mentioned that it would have been included in the report anyway, but she asked if Akira himself wanted to inform Simon about his girlfriend, Kuro, who had a similar situation in the past. The young man explained that he needed to inform them to establish that they were now under his responsibility, giving him a legal excuse in case someone tried to harm them. In the meantime, the girls were diligently washing themselves with the goblins, while Karen and Akira discussed their next steps. Then Karen mentioned that Akira had a tendency to play it safe. Immediately after, she would disclose everything the old man asked her. Akira expressed gratitude towards Karen for agreeing to his proposal. At that moment, the goblins finished and inquired about their experience. Observing the girls' attire, Akira commented that it turned out great, as he had expected. Pappy Kuro chimed in, stating that the sisters looked good, but not as good as Kuro himself, of course. The girl responded by saying that they didn't usually wear such outfits, but they enjoyed them. Hiro informed them that they hadn't fully recovered and needed to rest. Suddenly, someone called out to Akira and asked how the new clothes looked. Upon seeing her, Akira was taken aback, and Dyke, looking at Akira with embarrassment, admitted that she shouldn't have given them such nice clothes. She asked if they looked strange. The young man, unable to say anything, blushed and assured her that it wasn't strange at all. Dyke also blushed and agreed with Akira. In the next moment, she inquired about the whereabouts of her sisters. The young man hadn't gone to rest yet, but as he faltered on his feet, he accidentally fell right onto Akira. Unable to resist, Akira touched Dyke. Karen witnessed the entire incident, and Akira quickly clarified that it wasn't what she thought. Dyke was also extremely embarrassed and apologized. The girl fell again, but this time the young man quickly used an air cushion to help her. He ran up to her and asked if she was okay. Dyke reassured him that everything was fine, but it was a shame. Akira suggested that if she found it difficult to move in her current clothes, she could change into something else. However, the girl insisted that she felt happy and embarrassed in her outfit, and she looked at Akira. He realized that she liked it, but she quickly clarified that he had misunderstood and ran away. Akira shouted after her, urging her not to fall again. He commented that Echigoya was a scary guy, designing clothes that emphasized the charm of the 3 sisters, especially Dyke. In that moment, Akira thought a lot about Karen and what she had said. She assured him that it didn't matter and that she would send a message to the Count. Then, she decided to ask something from Akira, but before she could, she changed her mind and left. Akira couldn't help but think that these two were acting strangely. As he sat there, Karen approached him and informed him that she had received permission. The young man remarked that she had come quickly, to which Karen replied that it didn't matter whether he protected the demons under the Count's name in his royal being. They said reporting the disadvantages wasn't necessary. So he asked Karen what happened. Karen stood beside him and said it was too early to talk about it, but it seemed like there was some kind of shift going on. The young man clarified that he wasn't referring to that and didn't understand what was happening. Then he asked why she was dressed like that. Karen was wearing a dress that had been sewn by goblins in the past. She looked at Akira with embarrassment. Observing Karen, the young man mentioned that they must be celebrating something today. Seeing this, Karen thought that the atmosphere was different. Then the young man complimented Karen, saying she looked very good. He thought to himself that when a woman dresses up, it's important to give a compliment, or else she might think she made a mistake. He wondered why Karen did it willingly this time, unlike last time. Suddenly, he remembered his past life when Takashi came and informed Senpai that everything was ready. Upon hearing this, Akira praised Takashi, saying he was a great guy even in their past life, as long as his subordinates didn't make serious mistakes. Then he always made an effort to compliment Akira. He also reminisced about conversations with the prince, who was pleased to acknowledge that Akira was a true genius. They would prepare materials for the next meeting, to which Akira would confidently reply that it would be a piece of cake for a genius like him. This boosted the morale of his subordinates, who began to think and act independently. Akira continued to praise them even more. However, the young man eventually realized that it wasn't exactly the same, but the principle was similar. It was about taking initiative. Akira believed it was necessary to praise Karen, who wore a stunning dress. The young man commented that she not only looked beautiful, but also had great taste, and the dress accentuated it perfectly. Upon hearing this, Karen became very embarrassed. Observing her reaction, Akira was surprised and said that compliments alone wouldn't suffice. He also needed to gift her clothes. He looked out from his house and called Echigoya to ask if he was around. The guys informed him that Echigoya had gone to get flowers because he made clothes from cotton and special flowers. Akira then decided to go and find Echigoya for Karen's sake, but she insisted that it wasn't necessary. As she extended her hand, Akira said that they should go while they still had the chance. Karen blushed in response. But the young man took her into the woods and pondered to himself that if someone desired to take the first step but couldn't, those around them should give them a nudge. In the next moment, they found themselves in the forest, gazing at Karen. The hero noticed how stunning she looked, and when she turned to him, she inquired if he knew where Echigoya had gone. The young man replied that cotton flowers grew in this area. He had studied the village well, and, by the way, while tanning, he recalled the conversation they had earlier. Karen asked if the young man had mentioned the protection notices for the three sisters in his letter. The letter bore the seal of the prince and the count, indicating that they were not opposed to it. The young man explained. Akira then stated that the person they were waiting for was this prince. The girl responded by saying that he was perfect in everything. It would take a long time to list all his accomplishments, but she had never heard of him failing at anything. Upon hearing this, Akira contemplated how he had never made a mistake and proceeded to ask Karen if the young man truly defeated the Demon King without any issues. She confirmed that it was indeed the case. Akira found it intriguing that Prince Albert possessed such an extraordinary ability that prevented him from making any mistakes. The young guy believed that everyone makes mistakes, so it's like having endless luck or the ability to rewind time, just like saving in a video game. He realized he had already used this skill during a conversation with the prince, which made him a bit upset. But then he wondered why he didn't try again. He knew there were limits on time and quantity, though. In the next moment, they found themselves in a cotton field and saw Echigoya picking cotton. When Echigoya noticed them, he mentioned that the headman and Karen were also there. Suddenly, the wind blew and Echigoya started falling. Karen ripped her dress and rushed to save him. She managed to grab him right at the edge of the cliff. Echigoya thanked Karen and noticed her torn clothes. Karen told him not to worry about it, as it was difficult to move in that dress anyway. She explained that it wasn't because Echigoya made bad dresses, but rather because they weren't very comfortable. She mentioned that the young guy couldn't make clothes that were easy to move in, even though they were beautiful. Echigoya agreed and promised to make clothes that would be both beautiful and practical. Karen had saved his life. so he wanted to repay her. In the next moment, he made clothes for Karen, and everyone agreed that they looked really cool and nice. Akira pondered over what she disliked last time, but now everything seemed to suit her. She gazed at herself, admiring her own beauty, and complimented herself on looking amazing. The smiling girl inquired about it. Suddenly, a group of people arrived in the area. Akira instructed them to leave, as they had crossed the goblin border. The people disregarded Akira's words, and this was nothing new to her. In the next moment, she noticed a girl casting a spell, which made the two guys in front of her stronger. Upon witnessing this, they charged towards Akira. Akira believed it to be a strengthening magic, as two warriors attacked simultaneously. It was quite interesting, with one acting as a tank and the other as an attacker. However, they soon realized that fighting the goblin was not as easy as they thought, as he unleashed black flames upon them. In the midst of the battle, he used a black thread to engage in combat. The girl standing nearby called upon the Lord of Heaven with her spell, hoping for his assistance in destroying the gate. But before Akira could finish reading, she grabbed the girl. Everyone witnessed this, and the goblin immediately targeted them. They realized that this guy was not to be underestimated. The young man thought it was a clever tactic, but the guys had a narrow mindset. They asked Jessica to use her power, but it didn't work on the warriors. The goblin was confused by their strategy and launched another attack. Akira believed he had defeated them, but he was mistaken. Suddenly, there was an explosion, and all four of them were tied up in front of him. Karen appeared and mentioned how the goblin was growing stronger. She wondered when it would all end. The girl talked about the enemy's actions, but reminded everyone that he was just a goblin. The goblin didn't understand, but the main point was to drive away the intruders without causing serious harm. Akira thought it was a simple warning and told Karen to consider how others would perceive the story of the defeated adventurer. There was no need to continue, as it seemed like a test. The humane tactics were effective against the goblin, as people fear what they don't understand. Karen agreed with this assessment. It turns out that the measures he had taken didn't work, so he would have to try a different approach. The goblin then mentioned that their entry was completely illegal, and they would face punishment for it. Karen asked if she should put them in a cage for 7 days. The young man replied that he didn't think it would help. Karen then inquired if Akira had come up with any other ideas. He said that he had one, and proceeded to use the tattoo artist's function to tattoo their heads, symbolizing their defeat to the goblin. Upon seeing this, Karen remarked that it was a sneaky move. The young man explained that for some adventurers, this punishment would be worse than death. Karen wondered if this was the first time she had heard of using tattoos as punishment. She mentioned that in the Edo era, criminals were punished with dog tattoos, which somewhat resembled the modern law of 3 strikes in the United States. Carmen added that she had only heard of such punishment once, but it seemed to be quite effective. Akira clarified that he simply wanted to put an end to these conflicts, even if it was just temporarily. It would serve as a clear example of the consequences of invading and losing. Karen mentioned that only he could have come up with this idea. Akira agreed and thanked her for being careful. Karen then offered to cook for them if they were hungry. Akira happily agreed, and Karen went home to prepare everything. However, she tripped and fell on her way back. Akira wondered if she was okay, and thought that a looser dress would be better for her. Suddenly, he felt someone watching him and realized it was Eunomia, Karen's younger sister. Confused, he approached her and asked how she was feeling. Eunomia blamed him for something and said she wouldn't give him her little sister, Dyke. She then ran away, leaving Akira puzzled. Karen, who had been listening, didn't understand either. Eunomia then ran away, leaving Akira puzzled. Karen, who had been listening, didn't understand either. The moment they returned to the village, they greeted the master and everyone was ready to celebrate and eat. He asked what they were cooking, and Dyke said she hoped he would like it. When he saw what she gave him, he thought it smelled delicious. Karen, looking at the dish, mentioned that she had seen something like this before. The goblin was then told that the workers called it boiled masamune. However, Akira disagreed and said it was stewed potatoes with meat. The goblins were surprised, and Akira wondered if everyone had heard of this dish for the first time. He turned to Karen, who said she didn't know about it either. The young man thought it was strange that no one in this world had thought of such a simple dish. He then asked Masamune if they had made it together with Daik, and she confirmed it. Kuro suddenly spoke up, saying everyone had forgotten about her, but she would cook next time. Akira agreed and said it was time to try the dish. After tasting it, he exclaimed that it was very tasty. Daik was thrilled that he liked it. Akira quickly realized that the stewed potatoes were not just flattery, they were genuinely delicious. Despite not having cooked any of them with Masamil, they turned out to be a tasty treat. He complimented Daik, saying that she would make a great wife. This made everyone feel awkward and upset. Kuro then asked how he would cook every day now, leaving everyone confused. Akira noticed that Daik's sister seemed to dislike him as she quickly took her away. Karen mentioned that first impressions can be deceiving, as Daik seemed more mature than she initially appeared. Akira thought about how the elven disease had affected such an active girl, causing her to feel depressed. He then turned to Masamune and asked what the headman wanted. The young man suggested that Masamune should use honey instead of sugar to improve the appearance of the dish. This secret solution intrigued everyone, as they expected nothing less from the village headman. They decided to find a bird's hive to obtain honey. Karen was surprised that Akira seemed to know how to cook as well. He modestly replied that he could do a little, just like those tricks seen on TV. In an instant, everyone passed the food to Karen, urging her to give it a try. After tasting it, she exclaimed that it was incredibly delicious. Turning to Masamune, she asked if he could teach her how to cook. The atmosphere became lively as everyone enjoyed the scrumptious food. Akira observed the scene and thought that everyone was truly enjoying the Village Day holiday. Karen mentioned that the stewed potatoes were particularly tasty and asked about the seasonings used for the meat. The flavor was different from what she was accustomed to in their village. The young man mentioned that thanks to Echigoya, he was able to trade with the city and purchase something. Karen remarked that she noticed the city lacked the same quality as Echigoya. The young man explained that it was in high demand. Karen eagerly asked if the young man successfully concluded the deal without any issues. He assured her that he could handle it on his own, and even offered to contact the Count if needed. However, Akira believed he could manage everything and would take a break at the very least. He emphasized that if they stopped the supplies, the prices for clothes would only increase. In the worst-case scenario, he would sell clothes to buy the necessary goods, ensuring that breaking the deal wouldn't pose a significant problem. The Goblin village is pretty self-sufficient, because they have everything they need here, he said. Listening to him say, it made me realize that he was not only a great cook, but also a skilled trader. I never suspected that the young man was such a genius, but Akira insisted that he wasn't, and that the girl was exaggerating. It was clear that Akira didn't like being praised. At that moment, both sisters were standing nearby. Curious, Daik turned to her younger sister and asked where they were rushing off to, and what had happened because the girl looked upset. The younger sister explained that they were heading towards a field full of beautiful flowers because Daik loved flowers and wanted to bring her there. Hugging her sister, Daik thanked her. They decided to collect more flowers and decorate their sister's room, just like they used to do in the old days. While admiring the flowers, Daik wondered if Mr. Akira also liked flowers, and asked her sister if she would help her find out. Upon hearing this, Eunomiya ran away from her sister, calling her very stupid. Seeing her sister running away, Daik looked after her, concerned. Eunomiya was in tears and said that she felt the same way. In the next moment, she bumped into Akira. When he saw the girl, he asked if they had gone too far because Hanzo would stumble upon them. Throwing flowers at Akira, she warned him not to think he had won and quickly ran away. The young man couldn't help but notice how much the girl seemed to love her sister, reassuring him that there was no need to worry. No one would take her away from her. Karen, observing the scene, thought it was just a case of woman's jealousy that a man couldn't understand. Mia, turning to her sister, remarked on how strange this place was. A bath, a luxury usually reserved for aristocrats and the wealthy, was found even in this goblin village. Daik chimed in, saying it wasn't just any goblin village, but Mr. Akira's village, which only upset her sister further. Daik's curiosity got the better of her, so she decided to ask Akira himself, He explained that the bathhouse was a vital place for cleansing both the body and mind, and the goblin villagers took great care in keeping it clean. This revelation only made the sister more unhappy. Dyke, however, praised Akira for his intelligence and thoughtfulness. As they left the bath, Eunomiya couldn't help but comment that despite the young man's luck in inheriting the power of the Demon King, he was still just a goblin. Hanzo's team diligently patrolled the forest, ensuring the safety of the village. The economy also made efforts to assist as much as possible, prioritizing the village's well-being. While Akira was exploring the forest, Eunomiya approached him and inquired about his purpose there. Turning towards her, the young man warned her about the dangers of walking in that area. Eunomiya then questioned whether he was patrolling the forest and if he was afraid of people. The guy realized that she had disregarded his words, but he still replied affirmatively. Upon hearing this, the girl couldn't comprehend why he would do such a thing, considering he was the king of demons. She wondered why he didn't just order his subordinates to handle it. In response, Akira clarified that he was actually the village chief, not the Demon King Akira. He also mentioned that he had recently taken on the role of a headman, so the system was not yet fully established. When she heard about the system, the girl was quite surprised and asked him about it. Akira explained that it was the leader's most important task to create a system that would function independently, without the need for constant intervention. Hanzo played a crucial role in developing this system, which was the whole point of its creation. However, since the system was still a work in progress, the young man had to take control of the situation himself. Upon hearing this, Eunomiya questioned whether it was foolish of him when he could simply rely on the Demon King's skills to solve all the problems. Upon hearing this, our protagonist had a sudden realization that this girl lacked the ability to truly listen to others. Mia, completely disregarding Akira, claimed that he was a Demon King with immense power, yet he chose not to use it. As she mentioned the Demon King, memories of the atrocities he committed flooded her mind. Akira, however, couldn't comprehend what he was pondering at that moment. Suddenly, someone behind them alerted them to the fact that they had captured someone. Akira turned around to see a man charging at them with a sword, threatening to kill them. Spotting the mark of defeat on the man's forehead, Akira realized he was one of the adventurers who had arrived earlier. It dawned on Akira that everyone was now in danger, so he urgently asked Eunomiya to hide. The girl seemed unsure of what to do initially, but eventually obeyed. Akira then employed his shield to confront his opponent, shouting that everything was his fault. He had become a laughingstock, and now he was too ashamed to even leave the forest. Akira believed this was the intended outcome and apologized, assuring himself that he had made the right decision. He had high hopes that tattoos would quickly spread rumors, acting as a deterrent. So far, this strategy had been quite successful, as the number of new attackers had noticeably decreased, and the number of incoming alerts had increased. However, something felt off. Turning to his enemy, Akira confidently stated that he had already defeated him once. In the next moment, he used the law of the jungle against him and warned the knight to never return to the forest. Upon hearing this, the knight obediently agreed and left. Akira then instructed him to leave, and the knight complied. Watching all of this unfold from behind a tree, she was horrified and tried to process what had just happened. Approaching Akira, he asked the girl if she was okay and assured her that she could leave now. Eunomiya, peering out from behind a tree, observed Akira and me. He approached her and asked if she was truly scared, but she insisted that everything was fine. Akira then commented that she looked pale and offered to use his power if she was hurt. To his surprise, the girl screamed that she was perfectly fine. Akira expressed his happiness at her well-being, and the girl was taken aback. The young man mentioned that he would go for a short walk but promised to accompany her back to the village afterwards. In the next moment, Eunomiya was yelling about why the young man didn't understand what she wanted from him. She was talking about why he didn't use the power of the Demon King on her. Akira wondered if she was referring to the law of the jungle. Then she said it was because he understood how she felt about him. Akira could simply order her to be quiet, but Akira didn't see it as a problem. He couldn't simply get it out of his head. The young man suggested that she needed to eat and get enough sleep to be healthy enough to fight back. This made the girl very surprised. Akira then mentioned that she looked much better when she was healthy. At that moment, Eunomia blushed and thought of her sister. Her legs started shaking and she looked at Akira. He asked if something was wrong again, but she denied it and ran away, saying she would never admit it. Akira, standing behind her, didn't understand. He found it interesting whether elves go through puberty. In the Goblin village, everyone was busy with their own tasks. Eunomia stood in the middle, while Akira stood near Dyke and assured her that everything would be fine. Dyke mentioned that something was bothering her, and Akira thought they could start. Dyke exclaimed that this was really true, and the young man couldn't understand why he was so nervous. In the next moment, Akira shared one of his qualities with Dyke, who accepted it and felt a new sense of ability. Then, Kuro ran up and mentioned that this was another amazing skill of Akira, urging Dyke to use it immediately. After asking everyone if they didn't mind, Dyke said they of course didn't mind. Akira also expressed his desire to hear Dyke sing, and the girl happily agreed. She started using her voice, combining her singing skills with her newfound ability, and everyone was amazed. They all looked at Dyke, mesmerized by her voice. When she finished singing, there was only silence, which excited her greatly. She asked if the guys liked it, and Akira said he was simply shocked because it was amazing. Deepika, feeling embarrassed, asked if it was really that good. Everyone started talking about how they needed to have fun and create a scene for Dyke, and the girl began singing again. Eunomia was curious when she saw it and asked Karen what it was. Karen explained to her that it was the evolution of skills. When Eunomia heard about the evolution of skills, she pretended not to understand anything. Karen then clarified that it was Akira's ability, and suggested that if Eunomia had the same skill, she could develop it too. This made Eunomia look at Akira again, and ask if he really had such power, which shocked her greatly. She then mentioned that her sister used to sing well, and that the young man had nothing to do with it. However, Akira responded by saying that if that's the case, Mia would like to develop her skill too. This made the girl very embarrassed. Akira then explained that it wouldn't be possible to create a unique skill like the law of the jungle or an 80-year-old creature, but then Kuro, who was next to Akira, told Eunomia that it was simply amazing and she had to agree. Akira became interested in knowing what skills Mia had, but the girl ran away from Akira and said she didn't need it at all, which surprised him once again. Hiro stood there and watched his sister, commenting that she was behaving like a small child. However, Kuro would teach her how to behave. Chuckling, Akira remarked that everything was in order, and that she could remain the way she is. When Kuro asked if this was true, Akira confirmed that everything should stay as it was. As he looked at the girl, he pondered that it was normal for her to go through difficult times during puberty, and it was best to give her space. Eventually, she would adapt to her surroundings, even if it took her a bit longer than her sisters. Later that evening, Akira was sitting behind his papers when there was a knock on his door. He invited the person in and was surprised to see Irene standing there. Turning to the girl, he asked if everything was all right with her. She replied that she was much better now. Irene was the eldest sister, and her condition had been worse than Eunomia's, which explained why it took her longer to recover. Akira silently contemplated this and decided to listen to what Irene had to say. She sat down next to him and explained that Dyke had already informed her about how the guy had saved them with his power. At first, Akira didn't understand what power the girl was referring to, but then he realized that it was true. Then they decided to inquire if that was the reason they had come to this forest. The girl confirmed it, but I didn't believe that everything would work out without Dyke. Without it, they wouldn't have been able to come this far. As they walked, they could feel the power of the skill, even though they had no idea who its new owner was. It was then that Akira realized that the 3 elves had been led here by this force. All of Dyke's efforts were not in vain, and he could only agree with the girl. Suddenly, he remembered Eunomia, who had claimed not to recognize him. Seeing the concern on Akira's face, Irene asked what was wrong. He explained that he hoped she wouldn't act like Eunomia. Laughing, the girl assured him that she would never behave like that, especially not towards someone who had saved her life. In that moment, Akira couldn't help but think that Irene was still normal, while Eunomia had clearly gone too far. Suddenly, Irene approached Akira and smiled at him. He was taken aback, and before he knew it, she hugged him, leaving him even more surprised. He asked her inwardly what she wanted from him. She spoke to, expressing her gratitude. The young man understood that his goblin super libido was too much for him to handle. In the next moment, Irene mentioned that she knew this, because goblins' libido is several times stronger than that of humans, and several hundred times stronger than that of elves. She reached out my hand, but Akira hesitated, thinking it wouldn't be a good idea. However, the girl insisted that he shouldn't be shy. In that moment, Akira felt like he was losing his mind. But then, Mia burst through the door, saying that her sister, Dyke, had told her to come. She had no choice. Turning to Akira, she offered to share her skill with him. However, before she could finish, Akira saw the situation unfolding through Irene's eyes. He turned around and saw Eunomia, who had just entered the door and was horrified by what she saw. Eunomia apologized, feeling very embarrassed, and ran away. Mia screamed, saying that she knew goblins were animals. Akira tried to catch up with her and explain that it was a misunderstanding, but it was too late. Irene, who was sitting behind Akira, told him not to take it seriously. Sometimes girls can be very stubborn. Akira, attempting to regain control of himself, admitted that he probably shouldn't have made that joke. However, as he tried to hug her again, the girl insisted that she wasn't joking and that it was her way of expressing gratitude. Akira understood that he didn't want this kind of attention, but before he could react, they were interrupted once more. Then Dyke apologized, explaining that her sister had the skills of a great swordsman despite her behavior. Curious about what had happened, Dyke asked, but then noticed Irene sitting next to Akira. Trying to remain calm, Akira realized that his face was flushed and sat down at the table, thinking that Irene was still teasing him. The girl laughed, and as Dyke left, the young man apologized and asked if she had seen Eunomia. Dyke's sister replied that she believed Eunomia was with them. The young man thanked her for her assistance, but the girl insisted that they had nothing to thank her for. Irene, who was sitting beside her and observing Akira and Dyke, simply smiled and thanked the young man. One day, Irene sat not far from Akira on a bench, bringing him a drink. He asked if she was feeling better, to which she replied that everything was fine. The young man responded, saying that if she didn't genuinely enjoy banquets, she didn't have to pretend because every day in the village felt like a celebration. Sometimes it could get tiresome, but the girl smiled and assured him that she loved the atmosphere. Seeing her smile, Akira realized that everything was truly all right. She then approached Kuro and reassured him that there was nothing to worry about, as Irene had been keeping to herself for a while. Curious, Akira asked what Kuro was talking about, and the girl explained that Irene had a special skill that she could use whenever needed. Depending on the wind flow, she would choose a suitable location. Akira wondered if she used poison, but Irene clarified that she had control over her body's pheromones. She could emit different scents with various effects, which could be used as either poison or medicine. Kuro, wanting to protect Akira, warned her not to touch him, finding it quite convenient. Intrigued, the young man pondered about pheromones, as he had only heard about them once before. He possessed numerous skills of his own, but nothing quite like that. With curiosity piqued, Akira decided to ask Irene if she had a unique skill. The girl humbly replied that it was an exaggeration, as it was simply something unusual and rare. Then our protagonist pondered that he was initially on par with Kuro's clairvoyance, and there was no one quite like him. Therefore, he doubted his ability to develop the girl's gift. However, in the next moment, Kuro saved him from her sister and placed him safely on the ground. Suddenly, someone called out, "Akira!" It was Karen who approached our group and informed him that His Majesty wished to meet him. Upon hearing about the prince, the young man was taken aback. Karen warned him that if anyone discovered his visit to the village, it could lead to problems. Hence, the prince wanted to meet him outside the forest. Upon hearing this proposal, Akira inquired if the prince had mentioned why he wanted to meet in the forest and what he required. However, the girl simply stated that the prince desired a meeting and conversation. Akira agreed and instructed Kuro to take care of the villagers. Delighted, Kuro assured Akira that he could rely on her. Everything seemed peculiar. If the prince was taking such precautions, it was wise to meet him just in case. It was better to remain vigilant. At that moment, Irene stood up, surprising Akira. Wondering what the girl wanted from him, she asked if Albert was the man who defeated the Demon King. Akira confirmed it to be true. When Irene expressed her intention to accompany him, the young man realized that she knew about Albert. However, he couldn't help but wonder why she referred to the Demon King as a man. Keeping his thoughts to himself, Akira asked if the girl would attack the prince. She replied that, of course, she wouldn't do that. Turning to Kuro, she asked if she could join them. Hiro said that she could go as long as she didn't interfere. In the next moment, all three of them ventured beyond the forest to meet the prince. Upon arriving, they saw the prince sitting on a horse. He turned to the guys and mentioned that they hadn't seen each other in a long time. Akira agreed, and as he looked at the prince, he noticed that he seemed to shine even more. Behind Akira stood Irene, and when the prince saw her, he asked if she was the same elf. Akira confirmed that she was indeed the girl he had saved earlier. One of the three elves overheard this and was surprised. They asked if Akira had really managed to cure the elven disease. Irene simply stood behind and smiled. However, Akira couldn't help but ask if it was really that surprising. The prince replied that of course it was. The elves had been suffering from this disease for almost 100 years, and there had been very few cases of recovery. Upon hearing the word almost, Akira became intrigued. He then began discussing the law of the jungle and pointed at Akira. Akira suddenly realized that the conversation was about him and the Demon King. In the next moment, he asked the prince what he wanted to discuss. The prince explained that he came with a proposal for Akira. Intrigued by the proposal, Akira was interested in hearing more. The prince then asked Akira if he wanted to build his own country. Confused, Akira couldn't tell if the prince was joking or being serious. However, the prince was indeed serious and wanted Akira to lead the Goblin Kingdom. Akira couldn't understand why this was necessary, but the prince explained that he wanted to prevent adventurers from invading. As the village was considered a monster village, there were no strict laws against it. However, if the goblins became a country, it would change the situation entirely. After listening to the prince, Akira thought about it and found some logic in the proposal. Akira also considered the possibility of it being a trap, but believed it should be carefully considered. Suddenly, Irene, who was standing behind the prince, interjected and asked if it was true. Both the prince and Akira were surprised by her sudden interruption. The prince assured her that if the goblins became a country, they would be able to live safely. At that moment, Irene made up her mind to use pheromones on the prince to determine if he was truly being honest and sincere. The prince simply glanced at the elf, but as she approached him, she inquired about the truth. In response, the prince's expression changed, and he revealed his desire for Akira to become the Demon King. This revelation left Akira furious, and he couldn't help but question why the prince wanted him to take on such a role. Irene then began to interrogate the prince, seeking answers as to why he had chosen Akira for this position. The prince complied and humbly explained that there were two reasons. Firstly, goblins were the most peaceful monsters capable of speech. Secondly, the prince believed that Akira possessed the qualities necessary for the role. However, before he could finish his explanation, something unexpected occurred, catching the prince off guard. Realizing this, he repeated his words. In the next moment, he swiftly mounted his horse and greeted Akira once again, as if the situation was repeating itself. The prince dismounted and approached Akira, who couldn't help but notice how radiant and impressive the prince appeared. Drawing closer, the prince asked Akira if he would be interested in establishing a goblin kingdom, getting straight to the point. Akira was taken aback once again upon hearing about the Goblin Kingdom. Irene, who had been observing from the sidelines, simply gazed at the prince and the goblin standing before her. The goblin mentioned that he needed some time to think, and with a smile, the prince agreed, hoping for a positive response. In the blink of an eye, he mounted his horse and rode off, leaving Akira to ponder his mysterious departure. Akira then turned to Irene, who was standing behind him, and jokingly asked if she had tried to use her powers on the prince. Irene playfully stuck out her tongue in response, admitting that she had indeed been caught. The young man remarked that the prince seemed to be afraid of her, and had acted strangely around her. Irene confirmed this, explaining that she had positioned herself in a way that the wind blew in his direction, but she had no intention of causing harm. Curious, Akira inquired about the pheromones she planned to use. Irene clarified that they were the kind that compelled a person to tell the truth and assured him that they were harmless, unlike brainwashing. In that moment, Akira asked if she had ever used her powers on him. Without hesitation, the girl replied that she hadn't, and Akira realized that Albert's ability to rewind time helped him correct his mistakes. Then, our protagonist realized that in front of him stood such a slippery character, the prince. They were standing not far from the trees when one of the locals ran towards him, informing him about some trouble and calling for the headman. Akira, upon seeing the goblin, exclaimed that he was in the city. Hurrying towards the headman, Akira expressed his concern and asked what was wrong. The goblin reported that Echigoya had been attacked by people in the city and was seriously injured. Both Karen and Akira were taken aback by this news. The goblin, who was standing right in front of them, was crying as he shared the information. In the midst of a storm, Akira tried to reach the village quickly, thinking about Echigoya, who was in trouble, and realizing that the situation was dire. Suddenly, the goblins shouted for the headman to come to them. As the goblins approached, Akira saw Echigoya, who was lying wounded on a stretcher. Rushing towards the headman, one of the goblins started crying and calling for help, while the other mentioned that they had tried using treatment, but it had been ineffective. Akira acknowledged that they had done everything they could, and now he needed to take care of the rest. Utilizing his supreme healing abilities, Akira attempted to cure his suffering friend. Then Karen showed up, riding a horse, and approached the guys. She wanted to ask about Echigoya, knowing that everything was fine because the headman had cured him. Karen saw two people carrying Echigoya on a stretcher and asked them what was going on. Unfortunately, they couldn't provide an answer. Madame Inspector turned to Akira and wanted to ask him a question, but then changed her mind. Akira simply shook his head and reassured Karen that she could take Echigoya to the village. He believed that everything would be all right as long as Echigoya ate well and rested. In that moment, Karen took Echigoya with her and mentioned that she would inform Masamune about everything. Leaving Akira behind, she also took another goblin who accompanied them. Akira stayed with the two people, who looked at each other anxiously, unsure of what would happen next. Akira turned to them and asked what had happened. They apologized and explained that they were not to blame. An angry Akira demanded that they tell him everything. Seeing his reaction, they became very scared, but realized they had to tell him what he wanted to hear. One of the men introduced himself as Charlie, Mr. Taylor's manager. Akira immediately thought of Taylor when he heard the news. Echigoya's skills were recently used by the main clothing merchant, who turned out to be a group of tailors. Curious about what had happened, he asked about the incident. The man explained that right after Echigoya left their store, he was suddenly attacked by an adventurer. Akira couldn't understand how someone could attack so suddenly, and questioned if the attacker was crazy. One of the men mentioned that the adventurer had a tattoo on his forehead. They also mentioned that Mr. Taylor tried to intervene, but the attacker kept shouting that he would make them understand. Akira, realizing the situation, believed that all the hatred was directed towards him, and it spilled over to Echigoya. Then Akira left and went to his friend, the Count's house. As they exchanged glances, the serving maid decided to leave them alone. The Count asked if the goblin was safe, to which the young man replied that he had fully recovered and was probably already causing mischief. The goblin confirmed that it was true, and mentioned that he heard it was a serious condition, but his friend easily cured it. They both fell silent, unsure of what to say to each other. The old man claimed he already knew the culprit, piquing the young man's curiosity. He asked if the culprit had been caught, to which the old man replied that it wasn't that simple. They had no reason to arrest him. He could simply say he witnessed a monstrous creature entering the city, making it impossible for them to take any action. Akira realized that, officially, it wasn't a crime for the adventurer to attack the goblin monster. From the perspective of the people, there was no wrongdoing. However, Akira wondered if the prince had ordered it. Turning to Simon, Akira expressed his desire to ask him something, and inquired if Simon had orchestrated it intentionally.